But then it's something there where, you need something like, oh gosh, tomorrow, like Zach's working on a film or TV show, and he needs to have some clients come in and do something at the studio.
It's August 11th, 2022. We're here in Studio 2 at Sunset Sound. It's an amazing day today. It's something we've been working on for a few months, and I'm extremely excited. Phil, are you excited?
Oh, yeah.
Paul?
Yes, I am.
I'm excited, too. What's the surprise?
Sure, you'll get your moment to talk in a moment. There's a gentleman that
Who's coming?
This gentleman to my right started as a runner here at Sunset Sound
Indeed,
in the
yeah.
late 80s.
Yeah, 88, I want to say.
Now he's went on to be a multiple Grammy-winning producer engineer, working alongside T Bone Burnett of all people. And for our 60-year anniversary, he's decided to come back to Sunset Sound.
And I've been really honored to come and do this too, because I take the pedigree I have from here very seriously. It means a lot.
Well, thanks for being here, Mike.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I'm honored.
That's so special. I mean, we want to talk about the studio, but we want to learn about yourself as well. Are you from Los Angeles?
No, I'm from the South,
Oh, really? Whereabouts?
Orange County.
Oh, okay. Right.
That's a good one.
Oh, that's South.
Yeah, that's a long
It might as
South.
well be these days. From the time I was two, parents moved here, grew up down there, and I actually still lived down there for, it was at least a year after I was hired here.
Oh, you were commuting?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I remember
Yeah,
that.
and after a while, I saw like, okay, I got to move because this is too much.
This is killing me.
Even with the off hours, I think I
Yeah.
worked 10 to 7
Yeah.
when I was a runner, and even those off hours, it was
Brutal.
I lasted a year and then moved.
Did you have parents that were musicians or involved in music at all?
Well,
Because you started playing drums when you were a kid, right?
I started in a crib.
Wow.
Playing bongo drums. I have a picture of me. My dad was more, ex-Marine, went into law enforcement, and he was actually a bodybuilder as well. He's sort of a Renaissance guy, but he played the accordion and the keyboards as well. But I don't think that's where any kind of musical anything was, brought out of me.
Yeah.
I don't think it was from them.
And that didn't influence you to pick up
the
accordion
getting a polka band.
or a banjo?
Not so much, thank God. But no, I just had an affinity to the drums, and had 4 older sisters, which influenced my musical. They were very into all the, David Bowie, Rolling Stones, anything hot back in the day. And so I would be influenced by the music that they were listening to.
Sure.
But then I just always had this affinity. I just had to play the drums. Kitchen floor with wooden spoons and oatmeal boxes and,
Pots and pans.
pots and pans. Yeah. Oh, remember the old gallon ice cream containers with the cellophane on the top? Was like
Oh, yeah.
a good snare drum. And graduated to one of those little toy kits. I think I Keith Mooned that thing at some point. And then I got like a little beginning drum kit. And then started in school, 4th grade, playing snare drum.
Okay, so you
Did
were in
that
jazz band.
mostly
And
through. Yeah. I did stage band. I did the orchestra. I was in an all city band like 6th, 7th, 8th grade, where the whole city, had a, like a big stage band, but with somebody legitimately on a drum kit, which was me. So I must have been pretty good, I guess.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome. I
then
wanna hear you.
from there, I just kept going.
Well, this is, again, very special that you're here. There's 3 runners in here right now working, and they want to learn how to get to your position, how to attain those things. that
Yeah.
you've-
Well, I didn't know a lot when I came here.
What sparked the engineering portion of it? You were in music and you're playing in bands and stuff,
Yep.
but what brought you
Well,
to...
I could quickly walk you through that scenario.
Please.
Was in bands and stuff, obviously, through high school. We had a pretty hot band in Orange County back in the day.
What's it called?
Contraband.
Oh, nice.
And we would go up to Gazzari's and like 2-3 days a week, and we had a regular gig there. This was just like a few years after Van Halen broke there.
Wow.
And we were pretty good. Like, I think that band Rat, remember that old
Oh,
band?
sure.
Like, they used to open for us
Wow.
at Kazari's back in the
so
day.
They opened for you guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
we were pretty good, and that fell apart. So I was in another band, and
So that was 80s? Early
yeah,
80s?
yeah, mid '80s, yeah,
Mid-80s.
early '80s, yeah, probably
Yeah.
early
That was
'80s.
pretty hopping on the strip.
Yeah, it was the old time, like right when the hair metal started breaking. Is sort of when the band broke up and our manager stole all our money, that kind of thing.
Great.
Anyway, so getting back to your question, so at some point around, I don't know, like 22 or so, I decided like, well, I could try to be a rock star or maybe I should get serious. Anyway, as we were talking about sort of embellishing your resume, worked myself into a job at a laboratory in Irvine. And it was a biomedical testing place, and I was like a toxicologist there, and with absolutely, on-the-job training. Anyway, after about 3 years, I realized like, this is not for me, and I was still playing the drums. I was still had a band every here and there, and so I decided one day I was living with a roommate, and I was literally driving home from work. And heard an ad on the radio for a Recording Arts Institute. It's up here in Hollywood. They were fairly well accredited and known.
Which one was it? I was going to
Trebas Institute.
Oh, the Treb. Yeah,
Yes.
I was going to say. I remember there was a few guys that went to. Some of them, a lot of the same guys went to the same schools.
Yeah.
But you were one that went there. I think you were the only one I remember that we ever hired that went to Trebas.
Yeah. Miami U. I know a lot of people come out of there. But yeah, and they were right here on Seward and Sunset. They were like nearly next door to you.
Right
guys.
around the corner.
Yeah. And
that's
so
close.
I left my roommate a note. I said, I'm going to Hollywood to seek my fame and fortune. And I wrote him a note. No, seriously. And I came up and I did a interview at the school. And I remember like sleeping in some flea bag motel overnight. Because next day, like, if you got in, you were going to start getting enrolled and all that. Anyway, 2-year program there. Didn't know anything. But it was fairly comprehensive. I did that for 2 years. And some of my teachers would bring me to the studio at night, like they were mixing, and after class they'd go back and work on their mix and stuff
I
like
remember
that.
the guy that ran the school was pretty proactive about placing his graduates in local studios.
Yeah.
He would make the calls himself.
Yeah,
and
they
contact people,
They
so.
seemed pretty good. I mean, from what I knew at the time and can think of now how they did things, but they were serious about training people. They had a good program. So I went through that and still playing the drums. And so once that was over, I think I got a job at the solar tower. Like they hired me to come in at night and like answer the phones or something. And,
Oh, wow.
And I just put a bunch of resumes out.
That was Dick Griffey, Solar Records. Was
Yeah.
Diane Warren's in there now.
Yeah, right.
That's cool.
So yeah, and I'd put a bunch of resumes out, and lo and behold, Craig called me. And I remember literally, because I would work before, school down there, and then I would come to school, and then I'd go to the studio at night and go back home.
Craig was the old studio manager for
Craig was the
33
studio
years.
manager, yeah.
33 years. Yeah.
long
For those that
time.
don't know, Craig Hubler was a studio
Yeah.
manager at Sunset Sound 33 years. He passed away 3 years ago, roughly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like 3
So
years.
you get the call. Craig calls you and
He-
says, "Hey, come on in here, Mike.
He's
I like your resume."
responsible for me really getting my first job in the music business, in the studio business. So he called me, and I came in to interview, and I didn't know it at the time, but I think he had 17 or 20 something resumes, and I think largely a lot of us were apples and apples. And he once told me he picked me because my little side gig that I was supporting going to school, I worked at a delivery company called Purelator Courier, and we dealt with the lottery tickets, gold shipments, So he thought I would be like a trustworthy person. And I think that's why I got the job. And I probably wasn't. Probably was not. But I think he told me that's sort of what weighed the scales in my favor. And So I started running here, dropped everything immediately, and
And that was late 80s.
yeah.
So you're done with recording school. Craig calls you and you get hired by him.
Yeah.
How familiar were you with Sunset Sound?
Not really.
Wow.
Funny enough, I was into different musicians, different styles of music. I studied all that. The production part of it was never anything I knew much about. I'd heard of Sunset Sound. I knew it was a big studio, but I really knew nothing about it at all.
Did you have a goal in mind, or were you just kind of,
Well-
I can do this because I'll be along
I'm
with
embarrassed to tell Paul this, but when I started here, my thought, and this is how naive I was, is that because I'm a really good drummer and I've done this all my life, I'll meet people and become a studio drummer. And that was always my thought, was like, I'll just wait for my in, and sooner or later I'll get the right person and I'll become a studio drummer.
Well, you had to be here in the heyday, that time when Jeff Beccaro was here.
Yeah, for
He
sure.
was on all the sessions
Oh,
back
man.
then.
And Keltner.
Yep.
Jim Keltner,
Right.
who I'm really good friends with still today.
Michael Baird, too.
Yeah, right. Oh my God.
Pooh
yeah.
Bear. I just
Yeah, I
saw-
haven't heard or seen of him.
I don't know what
in
happened
a
to
long
him.
time.
Yeah.
So I was a runner for 2.5 years. So I just basically did my job, learned when I could, and still played in my bands and stuff. And to just skip ahead for a second, I was 2.5 years later. There was a day I was living in a house with my band, and Craig came to me and said, "Hey, we need you. We want to move you up." And I had to literally decide, like, drummer or engineer, like, on a day. And I didn't hesitate, and
Wow.
became an engineer. I moved out of the band house, and
And that was your first assistant gig.
that's when I was officially hired. I might have been popped in rooms here and there just to babysit or
Do
something.
you happen to remember what that was?
I know my first, because you reminded me, but I did know.
Commercial, right?
My very, very first official assisting gig, and I saved somewhere the work order,
Yeah.
was in this room with Dick Marks doing a cornflakes
Marks.
commercial.
Richard Mark's dad.
Yeah.
Because he was a long-term tenant here as well.
He was a
wasn't
tenant here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And super talented guy. My God,
Yeah.
he was amazing. Yeah. Wrote so many,
Yeah, it's a Chicago guy.
What year is
Which is
this,
great.
roughly?
When I got
Get bumped up to assistant.
it must have been 91.
That's amazing that
91. Nirvana was breaking and all that. Yeah.
there's such a transformation in music. It's going into
Yeah.
garage rock and
Yeah.
alternative and the Seattle sound.
Yeah. And, just to, I know one of the things you and I discussed that you were interested to know was like who influenced me, as engineers and things like that. And it was the guys here, the guys that came before me that really trained me so much and cared. We were like a family.
So
you
was
know?
the staff guy.
Yeah. David Glovers, Mike Kloster, Stephen Shelton. Remember Steve?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Those guys, and Dave Knight, my God.
Oh, Dave Knight?
Yeah, who I
What
know-
about David Leonard? Was he around?
Yeah, he was around a bit, and it's still sometimes a project will go, I just send him something to do Atmos mixes of an album I worked on, because he was where...
Because he's down in Nashville.
Yeah. So it was a T Bone record, and I don't know. I don't want to get into Atmos, but anyway, it was easy to do. So I still see him a bit.
I ran into him as well at House of Blues.
Yeah.
I just saw your podcast. I go, "Oh, hi, what's your name?" He goes,
Yeah.
"I'm David Leonard." I go,
Yeah, yeah.
Was Peggy still here at that point in
No,
time too?
no.
She'd moved on by then.
No, but I heard the stories. Craig always talked about her, and I never came across her.
Then if
here.
she was gone, then David would have only been here as a guest engineer at that point in time. He would have been independent.
Yeah, he was probably working.
Yeah, right.
with,
I believe that's right. Yeah, I
that was
don't-
probably after Matheson, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I
so.
think David
Yeah.
was a returning alumni.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm sure I did sessions with him. I couldn't say what.
'Cause he left and went to work as a staff engineer at Capitol for a few years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then he started coming back as a
Yeah.
client. So
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Which is what the idea is. You bring
Yeah.
back the clients.
Well, people would hire him, and he'd bring it here because
Yeah.
this is what he knew.
Yeah,
and
this
it
was
would-
my home for
always
so
makes
long.
you look good when you can come back to rooms that
and
you
it's
really
just
know
like,
well.
It's like, you because one thing I admire about you, because I really love race cars and stuff, but like you got that car, like, and you go to a race and you go in a different car. It's not yours. You're not, 100%.
Yeah.
But like, coming here, you knew all the tricks, all the, and you probably knew the staff guys. You're like, that's a great assistant. Everything's going to go smooth.
Right. And
So
you knew
yeah,
where to put the drums and how to mic things, and
it was
Sweet spots in
Yep.
the rooms.
yeah, just every little thing, and you're just comfortable. You've been in here hundreds of times, and so it's great coming back as a returning engineer for sure.
How was Bruce Botnick as an influence for you?
Now,
the Doors.
that's an
engineer.
interesting question. So I knew of him. I don't believe I ever was on a session with him. He wasn't here much during my tenure. But
by then he
yeah.
long left Sunset Sound. He
Yeah.
would come in sometimes and do some work with Kenny Loggins or something
Right,
like that,
right.
as a guest
And
engineer.
see,
and he
what-
was doing film work then.
And a lot of those guys that were here before me, the guys I mentioned that I'm so indebted to for taking me under their wing and teaching me things and showing me how to do everything, all those guys, they would get those kind of gigs. Major artist, major engineer. I filled a role for quite a while as one who I was sort of like the go-to guy when like something pops up, and I got popped in a lot of situations. I also had what I think is the distinctive pleasure of a lot of times being put with difficult clients that either the staff guys didn't get along with, or the clients didn't like one of the staff guys. I don't want to name names or anything. We could talk later. But you probably know some of these people. But I figured out I had this great skill at being like a chameleon, where I could come in and read the room, read the person, kind of know what they need of me and adapt myself to their needs. And so I would get along with everyone just fine. I would, just
That's a
smooth
great
it over
trait.
them. Yeah. And it served me really well.
Oh, yeah.
Really well. Yeah. Yeah. And that just came out of me naturally, but also having some confidence, just doing what I did here for so long.
Well, you're really easy to be around.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, and
I've always been.
And I'm a humble guy too. I'm not full of myself. I'm, I just want to like help and make sure everyone's happy, comfortable.
That's exactly what I heard about you as well in those days.
Yeah.
'Cause you would take initiative to do things like, in those days, your father, Tutti Camarata, was
Yeah.
running the place as well. You took
Yeah.
over in 79? 79.
Me?
Yeah.
80.
But you're here
80.
constantly.
Yeah,
I was
But
here.
You took an initiative to clean like the tape vault out. You would never be sitting down at any moment. Just-
Well, and again, this wasn't necessarily like my character or trait, but for some reason I had some clarity in my mid-20s when I started here. And I would see the some of the other runners that were, here alongside of me, or, guys that came before. And when they weren't busy, they would sit down in the traffic office with Ricky Z.
Oh, yeah, Ricky Z.
We could talk
Our-
about her too.
Our traffic.
Yeah, and they would sit down and watch, TV and read the trade magazines and things, and I was bored. I wanted to like do something and be busy, and I always noticed there was trouble locate. People would call for a tape, always trouble finding that tape, knowing where it was. And we had, remember, the third floor up there was just stocked with tapes.
Still have it.
Is it? Wow,
Yeah, we're
amazing.
We're in the midst of reorganizing and cleaning it up
Wow.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I put together what I called the TLMS, the Tape Library Management System. And I basically, I don't want to say barcode because it wasn't digital, but I coded all the tapes with numbers and then made a logbook. And then there was columns for, whether it's here, who checked it out, the dates. And so I took the initiative to do that. And that was a project where, that could go on for a couple months because, I would get busy, have to do things. But then whenever I had spare time, I'd go work on that.
Wow.
And,
Well, we could use your help right now.
Yeah.
You have
Hey,
any
I
spare
might.
time?
I might.
Where's that
actually.
list?
I might. I'd love to come back here and do anything. Sweep the bathrooms out, which I'd done. And then I remember after that, I don't know why, I would just notice these things that like kept popping up. And so one of the things as the runner was I was responsible for making sure all the mics were logged out, and there was like a sheet there, and so I'd come and bust everyone's balls, like, hey, you got like 47 number 2? Like, yeah, well, you didn't sign the sheet. And like, Piersante, like, But so I noticed a problem that was happening was, I don't know if you still have the mics and all those cubby holes in there, but the foam was just getting old and deteriorated. And I spent a good long time like taking all the mics out, scraping all the old foam out of there, sanding it down, refoaming it, putting everything back together. And so I'd always have a project like that going on that I could do instead of sitting around watching TV.
Do you remember getting commended for that by Tutti or him noticing it, or you just kind of did it for self-fulfillment? You knew the company needed it done?
Yeah, it just seemed like my job in a way. Like, like be useful, do something, and, make yourself useful.
Great attitude.
But yeah, I don't think I did it for any kind of admiration or anything like that.
What do you remember about Salvador Tutti Camarata?
Man, so he would come in from time to time. He was always working on something, a little arrangement
project or something.
Yeah. Didn't have a great amount of interaction, but I do remember, passing him. He was always cordial, friendly. I remember helping him set up the bungalow with he had like a drum machine out there and a few things. And
the Prince drum machine.
Yeah, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, crazy. But I had the honor of going and helping set up his room. I guess he was like getting serious, and I guess he probably spent some time there.
Yeah, that was like his personal use studio, his office.
But one great thing, and I don't know where it was bore out of or what time during my tenure this happened, but I remember him coming up to me, and oh God, I'm an emotional guy, and I loved your dad because he came up to me one day. And he said, Mike, you're going to be a good engineer someday. And I was just like, wow. I mean, that was like the badge of honor,
Yeah, he always thought highly of you.
Man, it means so much to this day to me that he noticed and said something to me. And I don't know what I'd done to be, standing out in that way, but it meant a really...
That's amazing. That
meant a lot, yeah.
5 seconds that took him to tell you that made such an impact.
Man.
It's 40 years later now, and it's that could have directed you or any of these young guys in the right way.
And confidence. Which,
exactly,
as you're coming up, that's, even when you graduate out of here, I mean, that's something, I still get butterflies before sessions, people I've worked with, things I've done with that, and and I may need to look at my notes to remember this, but I wanted to... this quote, Miles Davis quote, "If you're not nervous, you're not paying attention." I thought that was the greatest thing, and I've always felt like that.
Classic.
And I feel like you just take what you're doing seriously enough that it matters, So, but that helped give me a lot of confidence, I think. So, yeah.
Well, that's what Tutti noticed about you.
Yeah.
So,
and I knew
you were doing things without being asked to do them. You just did them because they needed to be done.
And that, if you want an influence from my parents, that's probably where that came from.
That's great.
That kind of thing,
Making yourself indispensable. And
but not for any reason other than I'm just supposed to do that. I wasn't trying to get a leg up or anything. Just like that's what I was supposed to do,
One of these gentlemen told me yesterday you were doing tape editing over at Sound Factory, which Paul and his father obviously owned the other studio a couple blocks away.
Yeah, I'd get bounced there quite a bit. Yeah.
What do you remember about tape editing for T Bone Burnett over there? Would he have you just editing tape? Like, wasn't there like 7 tape machines in the lobby or something?
I'll remind you what it was.
I know I've edited tape many times for T Bone, but
T Bone had 3 different projects going on, which was not unusual.
As he did,
and
still,
you had. As you told me this, you had taken out a small business loan to put together a rig.
Yeah.
And it was an early version, an early DAW, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was Pro Tools or what it was.
Yeah.
But T-Bone was over there doing Jimmy Dale Gilmore.
Oh, right.
And you had been working with him at Sunset on Gillian Welsh.
Yeah.
And in the office over there, we had like 4 2-tracks lined up. We had the 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, and all these mixes and stuff, and rough mixes and you were dumping all that stuff. We had piles, if you remember, of tapes in front of every one of those machines.
Yeah.
And you were putting that stuff up while he was working in Studio A, and I don't know if you were also assisting on that session running back and forth.
I was on Gillian, and
but I mean, while he was doing Jimmy Dale
I did.
Gilmore.
I was the assistant on Jimmy Dale's record.
So you were in the office doing that, and when they needed you, they'd call you back in the other room.
Yeah.
But you were putting tapes up and doing transfers into your rig, and then editing.
Yeah.
So that's what that was about. But
early days with T Bone was
Was that one of the first times you started working with him?
That was very early on, but the first time I worked with him was one of 2 things. I can't remember which came first. It was either the Wallflowers record.
Wow.
Which
Bringing Down the Horse?
Yeah. And I didn't work on that for more than a couple weeks at most, because it was the tail end of the project.
Was that in here?
I think it was in 3.
In 3.
We were doing vocals with Jacob at that point and probably some odd overdubs. It was either that or there was also a film that T-Bone was involved with called The Thing Called Love. And it was with River Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
And Samantha Mathis, I think. And it was one of those times where T-Bone either passed on the project to someone or was working on it remotely, but I know he was working on that. So that could have been the first time. But then I think when I legitimately was on that, it was Larry Hirsch stepped in.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. He was one of my clients.
Don, sorry to skip back before T-Bone, but you don't remember seeing Don Landy around at all?
No. He was probably up at the house by then.
He was.
Yeah.
I think by then they were.
Yeah.
He wasn't working with Ted.
Yeah.
And he was working with Eddie.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, without having really studied or been that interested before in production stuff and knowing who all the engineers were and even what studios things were cut at, like that wasn't on my radar early on, but the hugest Van Halen fan ever. So I did know who those guys were for sure.
Wow.
But I did not cross paths with. Yeah.
What about Prince? Did you see him here? In the
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was working here a bunch when I was a runner. I always used to see him on the basketball court. I'm sure everyone's told that in
the high heels.
In his high heel shoes. And I remember waiting around one Christmas Eve until midnight when he was supposed to come in and never did.
Whoa.
I never was on his session because I think like someone like a Kloster or some more tenured guy would be put with him.
Peggy would have, right?
Well, she was gone by then.
Oh, because he was still coming back every night.
Yeah, he was coming back, and
Gotcha.
that Coke Johnson was on it.
Yeah. And I don't know what records, but I do remember the Batman soundtrack was one of them. There was probably several things. And then he was maybe involved with the Wendy and Lisa stuff. I'm not sure if he was even remotely involved
He was
with that.
producing like Maserati at the time. Obviously.
Yeah,
Jimmy
right.
Jam was just in. He hadn't been back here in 40 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Since Prince fired him from the time.
Wow, that's nuts.
And that was such a blessing in disguise for them. Obviously, they went on to be the biggest songwriters, producers ever.
Pretty much.
But
so Prince, I remember going out and getting all of his goodies. There was a laundry list of snacks he wanted.
Oh, the sweets.
Hershey, Solitaire almond chocolates, gummy bears, Famous Amos cookies, which you couldn't you had to go down the strip to the Famous Amos cookie shop
store
to get the Famous Amos cookies. And I would set all that up in his lounge and set up his I remember helping set up the control room a few times, putting his mic over the top of the console and, just setting up before he got there and things
that's
like that.
amazing.
Yeah, but probably never said a word to me the whole time.
Bill, that was just in the engineer, that worked for him for a month when Peggy was sick.
Bill Jackson.
Bill Jackson. He came in and did this, and he said, I always had to go get the Famous Amos cookie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
He would, he was so private, but everyone that works, here around those times said he would always be on the basketball court.
Yeah, he was out there quite a bit. I'd see him quite regularly.
It's just so surreal. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like,
yeah.
Prince, would he play like people one-on-one or something? Or
Sometimes he'd be by himself, or there could be a group of people. And
Doug Messenger said he played basketball with Prince. Can you picture that?
Wow.
That's funny.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That is
I
good.
wouldn't have dared, picked up the ball. I mean, I would just kind of walk past, and if he looked at me, which he didn't, I probably would have like said hi or something. But yeah.
Wow. But never assisted him.
No, never assisted. I a couple times would assist the assistant, like after he would leave, like compiling tapes, making safeties, like Kloster would be in the next day all burned out. And he's like, come on, Mike, I'm going to show you how to make a safety copy of the 24 tracks and things like that. And
what was the vibe here, though, at Sunset Sound in 1990? I mean, was it just completely packed all the time?
It was busy, yeah. I mean, I remember just in the back of my head not having any control over my schedule. Like I was like told like, hey, we need you for this Thursday and do. But yeah, I remember it being pretty hopping. We were banging it out.
That was a busy time.
Yeah, it was
We're
busy.
like 3 years into Pro Tools coming out then, right?
Yeah, well,
You remember when you transitioned over, Paul, from tape to Pro Tools officially in all rooms?
I remember we resisted it for a while.
rightly so.
And, the early
Yeah.
Pro Tools systems didn't sound that good.
Yeah.
And we were known as a tape facility, so we were still doing it. And I think early on we were just renting the systems. We didn't own them.
Wow.
Again, smart move.
Yeah,
at
we
the
waited
time.
till they, evolved to like second generation.
Did you think it was going to fade out, kind of? Or was
That's a good question. I think we were hesitant to jump in because of that. And also, our clients were all about fidelity.
Yeah.
And they were like, these things don't sound very good.
Yeah.
just quick?
We did a
Yeah.
shootout in A.
Oh,
I
did we?
remember being in there with all the staff guys, and Avid had a meeting with the studio and brought down their first, must have been,
You remember that?
it must have been Sound Tools. I don't even think there was Pro Tools, so it was 2-track.
That sounds, yeah.
And they
Yeah,
brought
sounds
in this little
familiar.
rig and brought it into Studio One and set it all up. And then we did a A/B comparison to our tape machines, the Studers. I think we were 800s at
Yeah,
that time.
that's what that would have been.
Yeah. And I remember David Glover and everyone else just going like, like it just didn't sound good.
Yeah.
We're like, we see the possibilities, but if it doesn't sound good, the thing you were talking about with all the tapes at Sound Factory. So when I was preparing, or soon thereafter, to leave here and be independent, I started thinking about all the people that left here before me, your Chad Blakes, your David Leonards, all these guys that, and I thought, what am I going to do to like set myself apart from those guys? Like, what can I do to just be noticed or get a gig where, it's like, cause I felt like, they had so much more skill than me, and they probably did at the time.
Yeah.
So I got interested again in the digital aspect of things. And I thought, like, what could I do to sort of, give myself some other avenues of making money? It's basically keep from going broke. So I got a little bit later version of Sound Tools. So again, it was a card you bought, computer card. I got that loan I told you about, built a computer, and then I knew through like computer systems in offices and things, they could make CD-ROMs. And it wasn't a musical producing device, but it could produce Redbook CDs. So I researched. I got the one type of thing that could hook up to my system and burn CDs. And then from there, I thought, well, you know what? It was weird because people do this without thinking these days, but there was no such thing as a project mastering studio. And I thought, I have pretty good ears, and I knew a few mastering guys. I would go down and hang out with them, beg them to like hang out at their studios and learn, like teach me some stuff. So I bought an interface that was the best thing at the time. Some great cable. I think I probably had. I think George was our shop tech back then.
Bender?
George Bender.
Yeah.
And I think he built me some real short cables and
Probably monster cables.
It probably was, yeah. I think it was actually.
Yeah.
And then I bought a Manley massive passive equalizer and some kind of a 3-band, real high-end tube compressor, and that was it. And I would people would find out I could make CDs for them. And so I built this rig. It was like, 20-something rack spaces. And I would roll it out of my little house and lay it down in the back of my truck, shove it in there, strap it down, and drive to the studio. And I could take this thing and back it up to a 2-track machine and transfer their tapes in pretty good fashion, and it sounded all right.
Yeah.
And that led to me being able to get small budget mastering things from at my house. I had a good pair of speakers,
awesome.
some maybe B&Ws or something. But the way this bloomed with the T Bone thing was we were in here mixing Sam Phillips' record. And I think Pat McCarthy was the engineer. Remember Pat?
Yeah.
So so we were finishing mixes, and they're like, well, who should master this? Should it be Ludwig? Should it be this guy? And we started sending tapes out. We made copies and sent them out to a bunch of mastering guys. And they all came back, and T-Bone was just like it's pressed, and, it doesn't sound good. And this was the early days of digital, of course, too.
Yeah.
So T-Bone says to me, he goes, hey, Mikey, every night we're taking home mixes. He goes, and they're on a CD, not on a cassette like would be normal, because you couldn't make CDs. Nobody could really do it yet. Yeah. And I said, well, I've been doing them on my little rig. I'm transferring the mixes in there and putting them on CDs for you guys. He goes, that stuff sounds fantastic. He goes, why don't you master the record? I'm like, all right. And I ended up mastering Sam's record.
Wow.
Yeah. So I built that little rig and made some side money and stuff. And
well, it's probably exactly what you were doing over there.
Yeah, it absolutely was.
Yeah.
And I remember coming in, even for some of the clients here, word got around the studio through the guys. And I remember loading up mixes for Foreplay and a couple other artists. And they would just call me, and I'd drive down and back up the thing in the back room and transfer their tapes and do, stuff like that. So that was me sort of trying to get ahead of the.
Yeah.
So the only thing we had at that time was a cassette tape. Huh?
Yeah.
That was before.
Nobody had this.
There was no DATs.
There was DATs. There was DAT tapes. Yeah.
There were.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were DAT tapes
Which I
at
never
that point.
really liked.
No, and they're so delicate.
Yeah,
But not everybody had a DAT player at home.
No,
that
they
could-
didn't.
No,
that they
and
could throw
people, CDs had just gotten pretty
Yeah.
big, and to be able to make a CD of your mix,
burn
was a
one,
huge
yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
It was well before any of the studios had that capability or anyone else.
That's so amazing, though. 'Cause it's the momentum of
Great
doing
idea.
anything that you come up with this, and then
Yeah.
that leads to that, and this
Man,
leads to that.
I'm blessed because I don't know. Nobody taught me any of this stuff. I don't know where it came from, but I'm fortunate, that I had some good ideas at points in time, I guess.
Did you have a girlfriend then, or were you just strictly here all the time? This is your focus, your obsession.
I have a girl that I'd been with and married for a long time during that time, but she was also very career focused, and so we were happily together, just pursuing our careers and being great friends and seeing each other when we could. And
I need one of those.
there's a heavy toll on engineers with girlfriends
About
and
8 to
wives
5.
and things.
Because they're in the studio all the time.
Especially a girlfriend, hey, Thursday, I want to go see this. I don't know. I'm not sure, and
Might have to work.
yeah. Or you do make a plan, and it's hey, guess what?
Might have to work on Christmas
Yeah,
Eve
because,
for Prince.
in this business, as you guys know, you got to be there. There's no, there's no turning it
Creatives
down.
in general, too. There was actually a special I watched once, and it was with all of Jimmy Iovine's wives.
Really?
Yeah, I'll show it to you.
Wow.
And
How many does that
it
encompass?
was 5, I think.
Wow.
Well, now I think it's 6.
That's a good amount.
Jimmy Iovine's a legend. Obviously, did a bunch of great work here.
Yeah.
You can't control genius. You can't put genius to bed at 10 p.m. You can't make him not be creative at certain points throughout the day. So that's even with engineers or producers or any form of musician. It's You don't know when this is going to strike you or when
Yeah.
ideas but even when you're working here, like you're here Christmas Eve at 11:50 p.m. And Prince doesn't even show up.
Yeah.
And it's like you have no control over
It's
that.
a lifestyle, It's like you commit your life to that.
Yeah.
It really is. If you want to be serious and you want to go somewhere, you got to be that serious about it. And a lot of things, it takes a toll. I'm not saying it's healthy or anything, but it's just kind of what you got to do to stand out.
You mentioned Chad Blake.
Yeah.
I hear his name all the time, not just from the Sunset people, but I was watching the Joe Rogan podcast, the Black Keys run. And they were still mentioning how they send their mixes to London.
Yeah.
It's the same guy they've been using, because, Black Keys actually cut Turn Blue, the record in this room we're in right now. Studio 2, right?
Wow.
I think.
Great.
I thought it was 3, but I think you
Yeah. It was
corrected.
2.
It was
I
2.
like those guys a lot. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
was he at Sound Factory then? Mostly?
Yeah.
Or only?
Mostly.
When I was here, I remember
He did some work over here, but he was mostly over there.
Studio B.
I worked with him at Wally Heider's.
Oh, wow,
And when I took over the manager position at Sound Factory
You brought him in. I remember you
82,
introduced him
I
to me.
wanted to hire him, but he was committed to doing a project at another studio.
Gotcha.
And as soon as he was done with that, he told me, I'm done with that, and I would still come to work for you if you still want me. And so I hired him.
He was a Sunset employee.
He was a Sound Factory assistant engineer, and eventually when it was time for him to leave, he didn't really leave. He just became an independent contractor and became one of our clients.
Yeah.
And
one of our really good clients.
He and
spent
Mitchell
a lot of time
Froome
in-
had Studio B booked 9 months out of the year, either working together or Chad doing mixes for other projects that Mitchell might not have been involved in. And then maybe Rob Schnaff had the other 3 months out of the year. He and maybe a few other people. So they were a team, and he spent a lot of time over there between being an employee and then as a client who just never left,
which is great.
It was great for us, and it brought a lot of people into the place and kind of put us on the map.
Plus, he made some incredible records in there.
Yeah. He did some stuff with T Bone too.
And you did some assisting. All the guys at some point got a turn, working with them. And there were a couple guys that kind of stuck longer than others.
Yeah,
but some of the guys wanted to be over here because it was
happening.
There was a little more technology going on over here, and to a certain degree, some of the Chad and Mitchell sessions, you were basically just babysitting because
sitting in the lounge.
Chad would don't you want an
much.
assistant? Because by the time I tell somebody what it is I want done, and they figure it out. He goes, I can already do it and be done with it and be moving on. Yeah. And there were a few guys during that course of time that knew that and watched what he did and studied his setup and tried and got to a point where they anticipated what he was going to want. They made themselves invaluable, and all of a sudden he appreciated having a good assistant, which he just never gave anybody that chance earlier on because he could do it all himself, and he could move at his own pace and not be tripping over somebody to do something. Oh, well, never mind, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
Was what he always used to do. But he assisted on a few things. Closter spent a good time with them. Tom Nellen, a few things, and
John Paterno,
a couple of the other guys. But
sort of stuck.
Paterno came in and stuck.
Yeah.
And when Paterno left, Husky Huskolds moved
Husky.
right in there.
Yeah.
And he knew
they
exactly
were a good match.
What it was that Chad wanted also. And, and between those two guys, they spent a lot of time as the assistant. And they both went on, and are having good careers.
Great engineers.
John
both
has
of them.
just got he's going to be a teacher at Berkeley School of Music.
Wow. So, crazy.
The legends that are all throughout this whole world that have started here with that one resume they handed in. Paul, for the people watching this, can you explain briefly kind of somebody gets hired here, you start as a runner, and then what's the end goal when they kind of get pushed out into the world?
Well, I think this goes back to our original manager, Bill Robinson, who started in '68 here. And he wanted to create this environment that he would bring in people fresh. You know, he came from Capitol. He was the manager over there. But he would bring in people fresh that didn't have bad habits, I guess you'd say, but were intelligent and had the ability. And he would train them, or the staff would train them as a runner first, so that they would know the ins and outs and the behind-the-scenes activities of what a session is all about. Because without a runner and helping set up and getting the session going, you know, the assistant engineer isn't just going to do all that himself. So first, you would teach him the runner ability and the duties at Sunset Sound, which would go on for a minimum of a year, usually longer, a couple of years. Then we would want to move them up into the assistant category. And they would be mentored by some of the older assistants, or possibly some of the engineers that worked here. They would take them under their wing.
Yep.
Then at some point, when we would start to maybe divvy out little sessions with them to do recording sessions, I remember my dad would do that. He'd go, "I want to try that new assistant." Because he always felt that if he did a session, he could understand how someone's ability was, and also how the room was working.
Yeah.
If there was problems with the room.
Wow.
So this all started with Bill, and then eventually we would tell the person, it was kind of a hard time, but tell the person, it's time to go out on your own. There is no such thing as a career assistant engineer.
Unless you work at Capitol.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're in the union, it's great. But so, basically we'd have to kick them out the door. And then we would hope that they would come back. We really did it with the overall being that they would come back here and start using the rooms in engineering, which most of them did.
Yeah.
So it was like this full circle thing.
I love it.
Train them all the way up, kick them out, engineer, become successful, bring back the client.
Yeah. Great model.
Creating your own
Sitting right here with Mike Piersante,
And
who's
here's
a perfect example.
Here's a great
that.
example of that.
Yeah.
But these names, David Leonard, Chad Blake, Mike Piersante, I mean, it's everywhere. And people, I'll be down in Nashville wearing a Sunset Sound T-shirt, and they're like, "Oh, I worked there actually one summer long."
Wow.
I'm like,
wow.
"Oh,
That's
you
cool.
didn't get to assistant engineer, obviously.
That's amazing.
But that's such a cool process too.
Yeah.
That, it's full circle. What was your favorite room when you worked there? They have such different vibes going.
Yeah. Once I knew better, my favorite thing to do would be to cut tracks in 3 with all that headroom and that Bushnell board, and then mix in here, which a lot of people didn't like because of that back wall is so close.
Tight. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, but I always understood this room from a mixing perspective, and I could be confident in what I was getting out of it. So, and then you have the nice Neve desk that you can press a little bit, and because one's great too. I love that board, but if you try to mix something aggressive in there, it just doesn't. It doesn't go. There's just too much headroom. It always just sounds beautiful and big and open. And so, if you want to do anything with a little aggression, the Neve was always like.
What's the best room for drums here?
Ooh, I like this room. I like this room a lot because you could get that big.
The volume.
Yeah.
This room was built in 1967, obviously after Studio One. What was this built for orchestras, and your dad wanted to have a room big enough to fit?
Well, it was the second room to come online, and it was the highest ceiling room. I mean, Studio One, is deceiving. People go in there and they go, there's kind of a short ceiling in here. How do you get a good sound out of there? But as, history would tell you, we've done some pretty incredible records in there.
Oh, yeah.
But I think my father, as an evolution, he needed a second room because we were so busy.
Yeah.
And so this was the natural progression. And this room happened to have a high ceiling room. I think this was a photography studio.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that.
And they
makes
used to
sense.
shoot in here,
Yeah. Wow.
But
Did it have this
it
same
did have
ceiling?
this. Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't have the acoustic tile in the
But
ceiling.
the height and
But it did
everything.
have the height.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
Yeah.
I asked Brad Wilk from Rage Against the Machine, Audio Slave, because he loves this place, and he said Studio One is the best drum room in the world. And
I mean, I've gotten great drum sounds in all the rooms, you know. So yeah,
it's so wild though. It's so weird shaped, and obviously it was an auto repair garage at some point. Studio One, Van Halen one's tracked in there.
Yeah.
Well, there's a good example. I mean, you know, Don Landy, Ted Templeman, they made great records with Van Halen, and they made them in both rooms.
Yeah.
And they still got the sound.
Did you read Ted Templeman's book by chance?
You know, I have it, and I have not. I've got a stack of books at home that I just haven't got around to.
It's so
But
fascinating.
yeah, I've heard it's great. Yeah,
And he just speaks so poetically, one, but two, appreciative of the studio, how much he loved it, and the vibe coming in here. And
yeah, you're
the
in
different
great
rooms.
hands. You walk into these doors. I mean, there, you know, you got good staff, good rooms, good the equipment here. You know, is like crazy. This was, you know, when I left here, I realized how good the equipment was taken care of here by going to a lot of other studios and going like, ooh, wow, you know.
Yeah, we've
So-
always put an emphasis on maintenance.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
super important, super duper important. Yeah. But
go ahead.
for just talking about room sounds, I mean, the Wrecking Crew stuff, right? In one,
Wrecking
I mean,
Crew.
go listen to that stuff. Like, you want to hear a good room? That room sounds amazing.
Yeah, that was the norm then.
Yeah.
The studio musicians were the Wrecking Crew.
So you've made a career working with T Bone Burnett.
Which I was warned about, by the way. Craig,
You're still worried
he?
about.
at some point, I mean, T-Bone largely, you know, grabbed me out of here at some point. I can elaborate on that a little bit. But I remember at some point, Craig warning me, like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, you know. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'm so busy and I'm working on all these big projects. And like, what do I do? Just like tell them, no, I don't want to work with you, you know. But apparently, I mean, when I met T-Bone, what I noticed about him is that he was different. He wasn't the typical record producer guy. He did what he wanted to do, how he wanted to do it, when he wanted to do it, and he just operated. So he was definitely different. And the real thing I remember vividly about T-Bone, I remember sitting, you know, I'd sit in the back corner of the room until somebody asked me to do something and be quiet. And there was some take of a song or something, and they were like, wow, I don't know, I like take two, I like take one. And T-Bone literally turned around and looked at me and he goes, which one do you like, Mikey? And I was like, oh, like, and he like asked my opinion, and I was like, that's never happened to me before in one of these sessions. And so I was like, this guy is like different, you know. So I slowly started, you know, assisting with him on several projects. And then there came one time where I was to be, he said, hey, I'm going to record my own record. He goes, I want you to be the engineer.
Oh, wow.
And
Which record was that?
I think it was Tooth of Crime.
Okay.
Tooth of Crime record. So I said, yeah, and I was frightened, you know. So I set up Studio 3, and I went to Craig, and I said, hey, Craig, like, I'm tracking, like, who's my assistant? He goes, you. He goes, you're the who we have for Studio 3. So I said, oh. So I finished setting up everything mic-wise, and Jim Keltner comes in, Mark Rebo playing guitar, I think Jerry Sheff playing bass, T-Bone playing guitar and singing. And I was just like, whew, okay. So I'm out there micing stuff up and trying to, you know, everything's plugged in, but I've got no outboard gear plugged. No sounds on anything yet. And Keltner's like, hey, Mikey. T-Bone taught everyone to call me Mikey, so that sort of stuck. And he says, I got this old Sony boombox, and he goes, I want to plug in a cable and do. And I'm just like, oh, like I need to go get sounds and things. And so I did it. You know, I took the time and I run into the control room, and I'm just getting ready to start patching in some compressors and get some sounds. You know, to get sounds on Jim Keltner is an oxymoron. It doesn't exist. He doesn't really do that. I found out. So anyway, I don't know, for whatever reason, hear Rebo asking Jim, like, hey, you heard the demo, right? He goes, how did the intro go again? And I don't know what came across me, but I just went over and hit record on the tape machine. And so Rebo plays the intro, and Jim does a fill, and then the bass player comes in, and T-Bone starts singing, and I'm looking down, I got 7 faders up on the board in Studio 3. Nothing's patched in, and I'm just like, like, what do I do? Like, oh, I'm recording. And so I knew like not to start doing stuff and, plugging things in and changing everything. So I'm like, I'm just going to wait till the end. And, I don't know if they know I'm recording or not, so maybe they'll give me a chance. And so they go through the whole song, hit the da 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 da, and it rings out, and it's on tape somewhere. Jim Keltner going, "Hey, Mikey, did you get that?" And I just go, "Yeah, I got it." And talk, and they're like, "We're going to come in and listen." I was like, "No, no. Wouldn't you like another?" And they came in, and it was so raw and wild. They loved it. They were just like, "My God, it sounds great." And I was like, "Okay." So that was my first engineering gig with T Bone.
Great.
Frightening, just frightening. And from there, I started working on. He'd have me first with them, and I was still seconding. But unbeknownst to me, as Paul said, one day Craig came up to me and he said, he goes, "Fly, little birdie." And I'm like, "What, you're firing me?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "You're too busy firsting and you got to move." And I didn't know that was what happened, but I got fired from Sunset Sound.
Time to move on.
Yeah. Open up the slot for someone else.
Yeah. And I brought people back here a lot and did a lot of projects. But at some point, T-Bone just refused to do the drive anymore. And since
I remember him complaining to me about that.
From Brentwood to here is a
brutal.
schlep. And you going both ways.
Could be a 2-hour drive.
Yeah. And he since he was my pretty much one client, I had no choice but to follow him. And it pained me a lot because I missed being at home, having that home field advantage, having the mics I knew which 251 was the best one, which 67, and at some point I just it wasn't my choice.
Well, and you're also here, you're in an environment where you're seeing other engineers and other musicians, whereas you're a little isolated in a situation
at that point, we were largely working at Village and stuff because we hadn't made that home studio it took a few years even to bring a BCM board in there and get that online. Right. So it started by us just working on West Side Studios.
And there aren't a lot of options on the West Side.
It was the Village largely,
Is that the only place you worked? Did you ever work at Jackson?
Yeah, we did that. Yeah. Not often, but we did work at Jackson's place. And once in a while, we would come back for something that because T-Bone loved it. I mean, he did
come back here. I remember
that. He loved this place. So whenever it was appropriate, we would come back because he always said it was the best studio, to work at. And once in a while, we'd have to go to Capitol for whatever reason. And a lot of things back then, you didn't always get a chance to say, "Hey, I want to do this here in this room," because it might be booked and you might have to say, "Okay, well then let's go to this studio." And because you had to do something at a certain time and get it done. So you had to riff,
What were some of the records though you did with T-Bone here? You started off his solo record and then you moved on. You did Wallflowers, Bringing Down the Horse, which sold I think 3 billion copies or something crazy.
Yeah.
It was gigantic. Counting Crows.
I didn't work on Counting Crows. That was before I started working with T-Bone.
Oh, wow.
But I was here, and I think he did that at Sound Factory, right?
Some of it.
But I was here at the end of that time.
That was the first album.
Yeah, August and everything after.
Yeah, we didn't do that. We did the second album at Sound Factory.
Okay.
So he did the first one here.
Oh,
That was Gil Norton did the second.
So that may have been right before I started, possibly.
He was completely on fire in the early 90s. I mean, always on fire, but in that time period specifically, it was just, like you mentioned, he had all the rooms going. He had 5 of the top 20 records in the country.
I was one of a couple engineers, or a few, I would say, that he worked with during that time because we would all be on different projects and doing different things, and things would overlap and whatnot. But no one really stuck with T-Bone for a long time because he was very demanding. He always had something going on, 2 or 3 things, and it was a rough life. And every engineer that used to work with him that I've seen in recent years has asked me, how did you stay with him that long? And I said, I don't know. I just kept going, kept working.
A lot of times things there was no break in between the projects too, so there was no time to recuperate from the last one. You just did it.
They
right
overlapped.
Into the next one.
They literally would overlap. Yeah. We would sometimes have a couple rooms here working on
different
a couple
projects.
albums, and I was the only engineer bouncing around back and forth, and yeah.
How's that possible?
Did you work on Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
Here?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember him doing that. I think he was doing a Gillian Welsh record at the same time.
Yeah, I worked on that with him here.
Yeah.
Several Sam Phillips records.
He just pop his head in and kind of be like, all right, let me hear this. All right, that works. That doesn't work, and then go on.
Yeah, it's always different, always different. But T-Bone was that guy that would do everything from just be the producer to, if he knew like exactly what he wanted, he'll jump in and get on the board and start twisting EQs and things. And
so he know how to engineer too.
Yeah, he started out 16 years old owning his own recording studio. But he would usually get stuff like in a direction, especially like when he's guiding me in my early years, and then he's go, all right, you take it from here now, you get the idea. And I'm like, okay. And so we just developed a way of working together over the years, obviously, and developing a sound. But yeah, we did work on Oh Brother here, I think in 1 and 2. I know we did some overdubs and probably mixed the soundtrack here.
Yeah,
pretty sure we mixed the soundtrack here.
Yeah, we've got the the big gold record.
Well,
platinum record.
One of the things you mentioned on here was the album that I'm extremely proud of, and it would have been that, of course, because being the situation with T-Bone I was in, where I wasn't necessarily always able to like bring the clients back here, and and I felt, I don't know what the word is, but like, I feel like I wanted to do more of that. But when we had this great success on this album, it was me who orchestrated getting that plaque and scheduling the time to come down here and present it to Paul in the studio. Oh, wow. And that was like a big, big moment for me. Like, here, look, I done good.
Plaque.
I done good.
You did, dude.
Yeah, and so that was like hugely important to like be given back to the studio and do something that we were proud of and they were proud of.
That's amazing.
But also,
well, you got a Grammy for that, didn't you?
We a couple. I think a few of them, yeah. And I'm trying to think, because there was a time back then where T-Bone was getting into film work and got a string of a bunch of big films, in a row that we were working on at that time. And I'm trying to think. I know there was Callie's movie, his wife Callie Corey. She's the one who did Thelma and Louise. And we did the Secrets of the Yaya Sisters.
Oh yeah,
which is it's a cute movie. It was Sandra Bullock and James Garner, I think, was in it. Well done movie, but had a lot of like different music in it, from Macy Gray to like big band and just a lot of different.
Was he the music supervisor?
He probably was.
Because I know he's just a brilliant savant kind of guy when it comes to music and genres and the knowledge he has.
Impeccable
is just,
taste.
Just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
What he knows.
He is a musicologist, legitimately, yeah. And that's like, that's something you're around him for a lot of years and you try to lock in on, but it's like you'll never catch up.
Well, for those that don't know, what is when you're working on a soundtrack for a film, what does that all entail?
Well,
it obviously varies from project to project.
Yeah, and we do things a very specific way, mostly, because the stuff Big Lebowski.
Oh, that's
here,
right.
Which I didn't have a big part of, but it's like,
Bridges.
I worked on the Big Lebowski. And I know the dude today because we've done a lot of other projects with them in
Crazy
the past.
Heart.
But so that was
Crazy
the one I was
Heart,
trying to think of. And Crazy Heart,
Yeah, that
which
was a great film.
That's my missing Grammy, by the way.
Did we do that here?
Did we do that here?
I don't think so.
That might have been Village. Yeah, that was Village.
I don't think so.
But anyway, I don't need to get into the details. But, basically, when T-Bone and I do a film, it's going to be a music-based film. Unlike, it's a film and there's music in it, regardless of how, great the music is. But we typically would do films based on music. So we would always go in, do pre-records, get everything really locked down. After, of course, picking the songs, knowing the script and what's going to go where, do a lot of recording. And then like in a case like Walk the Line or something where these actors have to sing, then it becomes very tough because you do scratch vocals with really good singers. You get it grooved and timed really well. And as you're teaching these guys to sing, and I don't mean me, but I certainly work with them a lot, and you'll do the post stuff. But, vocal coaches, all kinds of stuff, people who teach them how to act on stage, they're learning all this stuff. But when they go to shoot, if they're not actually singing, or even if they are, like everything's got to be locked down before you shoot picture. Because once those lips are synced, you can't move vocals around and groove things.
Right.
And, because T Bone and I are famous for going into a song, and we'll edit the crap out of something if needed, but it's just little bits and pieces by ear to make things land and ring in a certain way. And we want to go in and come out and you never knew we were there. It's just the band playing and the guys singing. And
was Jeff Bridges a singer?
Yeah.
He was?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was, yeah. And he sang all of his own stuff. But then we've done like in Oh Brother, like George Clooney, that's not his voice in the film singing. Although he did sing it, and it was asked to be erased. And I reluctantly, I'm T-Bone, are you sure? Are you sure? Yes. And I was told to burn it, send it to magnetic heaven, and never to be heard from again.
Wow.
So I did that. But he was fantastic. I mean, he really wanted to do it and realized like it could be better without him. Actually, he didn't need that bump to his ego to be the one to actually sing it. He just wanted the best thing.
Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon did, however, sing Walk the Line.
And man, they worked hard. I mean, I'm going to say they sang those songs, God, I don't even know how many times, 20, 30, 40 times. Picking up bits and pieces, practicing. And yeah, when you hear Joaquin do Johnny Cash, it's like, wow. It's like, man, who thought anyone could pull that off? And he just did an amazing job. Plus the acting is great. And
that was probably done in Nashville, I would imagine.
We cut tracks there. And actually, Jack Clement, who was
Sam
Phillips, thank you. It was his engineer. And he actually built the studio, Sound Emporium in Nashville, that we cut the tracks in. He had since sold the studio to Garth Fundus, I think it was, and he had a place across the street. But he knew we were doing this, and we invited him down to hang out and like pick his brain, and how would you do this? And he ended up being the one to not only play the track, but to show us how to take a dollar bill and thread it between the strings of the guitar, so you get that that kind of sound. And so it was really cool to have him around. But then all the vocals and stuff were pretty much done at T-Bone Studio at that point. We were up and running with that console by then. And
the Bushnell?
Yeah.
The Walk the Line was done on the Bushnell API.
Quite a bit of it, yeah.
We got to touch down on that. We've
we
discussed this a few different times, but
it went in 1970.
Oh, okay. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
and then it came out around 85 when we when we completed the board that was in there. Wow. I sold the board to Paul Wolf. I wanted to get it out of town. I didn't want it here. I didn't want Sunset Sound down the street by somebody else's competing against us. So
because back then you went to a studio and got a sound that you wouldn't get in another studio.
I wanted it out of here. So Paul took it to the East Coast. It was great. It spent many years in the East Coast.
Hopefully resting somewhere.
No, it was working. Console, but that's fine.
Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, it was in Virginia, and then it went to Philadelphia.
Yep.
And then this guy got a hold of it, this broker. Anyway, T-Bone. Michael Block. Yeah, who I know. So T-Bone happens to be recording here. You were probably with him, and I don't remember what he was recording, but it was in the 90s. And he comes up to me. I'm standing right out the back door here. He comes up to me, and he goes, Paul, I'm going to buy your console. And I go, I mean, I didn't even know what he's
like,
talking
what are you talking about?
I go, you're buying what console?
Yeah.
You know, the console that was in Studio One. And I just go,
No.
what?
Yeah.
It was just, my mind just was spinning at a million miles. Oh, there
This
goes.
is not good.
This is not good. There goes
Yeah.
T-Bone. I'll never see him again. And then I go, tell me where? And he goes, Michael Block. I'm negotiating buying the console right now as we speak. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, how nice.
Yeah. How nice. I'm so happy for you.
How nice is that? Yeah. Anyway,
I actually, before this happened, that you talked to him, I actually found the console.
for sale
Weirdest thing, I was looking through eBay.
through eBay.
Blame him.
Yeah. T-Bone would
your
have never found this. He would have never known.
Of course not.
I'm searching through eBay because I'm one of those guys who, like, I keep up on gear. I read about stuff. I learn what all the new plugins that are coming out. You get that little blurb in one of your emails, like how to record a pop vocal. And I'm like, I'm going to read that. Like, this is yesterday. It's like, I know all this stuff, but maybe there'll be some little thing that I never thought of or never tried. So I'm flipping through eBay looking at gear. And I'm like, because I knew what that console looked like because we had one in here and we had one in there.
Yeah, they were sister consoles.
Yeah, because that one that was here when I started hadn't left yet.
Right.
And it ended up in town, too.
Yeah, that ended up in town.
That was that
Skip Sailor.
Skip Sailor. Yeah, I didn't want to say his name unless it was okay.
Skip.
Yeah. So anyway, saw it, and I'm like, I got to call this guy. And he started telling me, I'm like, hey, like, I know this board. I worked at Sunset. And he goes, well, I'm not really selling it through eBay. He goes, I'm just advertising it. I said, okay. So, like,
And it had a price?
No, I don't think it did.
Yeah.
I don't think it had a price.
Like a bid thing or something.
Yeah, it was probably like not known what the low bid was going to be, or who knows.
Were they advertising it as Sunset Sound Studio One console that Van Halen 1 was done on and Stevie Nicks and Doobie Brothers?
They probably didn't have a history on it.
Yeah,
I didn't think.
certainly T-Bone and I and Paul have gone through in the years and really gotten to the meat and potatoes of the history of that thing. But I don't remember. It might have said something about Sunset Sound, but I don't think it touted much more than that.
Just wondered, yeah.
So I, of course, told T-Bone, just out of like, can you believe this? And I didn't know he was going to buy it, We had his living room, and Brent would set up with a BCM console. We'd bought a 3M, I want to say a M16. Is that the right? 16?
M79?
M79.
16 track?
The closed loop.
Oh, yeah. Snap tape.
Super duper good sounding machine.
Sounding good.
Hard to align.
When it worked.
Yeah.
The 16 or the 24?
16. It was a 16.
16.
The M56?
Remember we had those at
Might have
Sound
been
Factory
can't
when we
remember.
first...
Yeah.
Did you? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I remember it snapped a couple people's.
Yeah.
Two
Oh, no.
inch.
When you hit go, that gate
Bam!
would just slam up. And
Oh, yeah.
I've got a recording of, I remember working the first times at T-Bone's house on that board. And I'm in, micing up Jim, and Sam's in the back bedroom. So I go over to talk to her. And, like, nobody knows where I am because there's no communication. And I hear Jim counting off the song. And so I run over to the tape machine, and I hit go, and you can hear on the tape, it's actually on Sam's record, you can hear that head gate slamming shut, and like, boom, the downbeat goes. I mean, I barely caught it in time. So we had that, and the little BCM 10, and 2 LA2s, and like, that might have been it. And we were like making little records over there with that. So I never dreamed T-Bone was going to like, hey, let's install this big console in there. And then he decides, like, I got to buy this. I want this board, and we're going to put it in here. And so, yeah, it happened. Yeah.
2 questions,
Yep.
if you can. How much was it?
Ooh. I could be so off base. I remember for some reason, like, it was like $60-some thousand. Does that
I was going to say, I don't know. He didn't tell me, but
it wasn't.
I did talk to him a couple times or once after that, and I just said, I'll give you some advice. Just make sure it's loaded up correctly. Make sure it's got the 550 EQs.
Did not.
Yeah, and make sure it's
Empty.
got, it was empty.
All the cards were there.
But the EQs were out?
EQs were missing. Not
Was
a
that
one.
the only thing that was missing?
Yeah, pretty much. They had all the looms, all the interconnects to the multi-tracks.
Pulled them out and sold them to people for lunchbox.
Something, yeah.
It had faders?
It did. It had the original.
The manual Penny and Giles?
Yeah, P&Gs in there. And then we, of course, retrofitted it with the flying faders. We got through Dale Manquin, which was just a bitch. And then we had to have the faders modified to fit in there for whatever. I think Charlie Bolus came in and did all the mods. But then, we had to buy a slew of 32 equalizers.
So you had to go out and find those.
Dan Alexander.
Oh, Dan.
Good old Dan.
But you didn't get a deal on that.
Don't remember so much. Yeah. But unfortunately, I guess I was instrumental in the thing being found and the putting it in and everything. But man, it was badass. It was fucking awesome to have that in someone's living room.
Oh my god!
And it's a Shelby Cobra.
Yeah, it just keeps going.
Well, and also you push your mix up, and it already sounds like you've been working for half an hour. Yeah. It glues everything together, and I mean, you got one in the other room. And
I know.
It just, man, it's just.
Did T-Bone just want to work from home? He was sick of traveling to studios and the rates and everything.
He loved that idea. Because then, his whole life is just one thing. There's not personal and business so much, and recording. I mean, everything sort of overlaps, So for him, it was a very convenient thing for him to just be able to be working and then disappear upstairs and start like searching for some songs for a movie. And if I need them, I like stomp on the floor or something when it comes down or whatever, And so for him, it's very convenient and helpful to be able to just have that workflow and overlap and multitask. And many, many, many times we would have rooms at the Village and have other things going on at the house, a mix set up, and we'd run to the Village and make a track, come back, finish our mix or whatever, bouncing all over the place. And it was just me working with T-Bone, all these projects for a good 10 or 12 years.
In the house.
And everywhere else.
And then you would cut tracks in Nashville, right?
Yeah, we did. We had a little period of time where we do that a lot, yeah. And then we started working with a lot of artists. We did a string of people like from B.B. King to Greg Allman to Elton, Leon Russell, and where we would have our band and we would have the artists come and become part of our band, our house band. So we did that, but it was just me running this whole show, all the time. And I lived way too close to T-Bone where you get up in the morning and you're expecting the day off, or maybe I'm doing something else and it's like, hey, Mikey, can you just come over and help me? Or we got to get a mix together, or, so it was just constantly zing, 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 back and forth. And
wow.
So, but that console, I mean, we got it up and running. We picked where in the room to put it by getting the monitors, emptying the room out, and moving the monitors around the room to see where they sounded the best.
Would you have floor monitors or something?
Well, once we got that done, we moved the board in and got it working. But we had ATC 150s up on sound anchors, big dual pedestal ones, towed down, and literally one would be right above your head, and I'm at the console, and one was, it's just these massive monitors about like 8 feet away from you, and T-Bone would just crank the shit out of them. It's like over 102 dB and just pumping,
How's your ears these days?
Good. I took precautions when this, if he kept going like that for too long, I would either, step aside or put some plugs in. But I'm doing fine. I mix a lot.
A year ago, we get a film crew down here to interview Paul.
Yep.
And the topic is the Bushnell API console.
Yeah.
What was done on it? What's the history of it? And they wanted Paul to give an interview on it.
Yeah.
Because
I did watch that.
For the
Fantastic.
sale. Yeah, that was great. And well done. Yeah.
Man, I just was like so, just so grateful to see you get involved in that. And
I wanted to help him out on that.
You cared about the boy. It's a thing.
It's a living thing that keeps, probably be still going when we're all gone.
It probably will.
But they cut a trailer, an amazing. It was almost like a movie trailer about this recording console to let the public know it was for sale. One, but two, just the history of the board, obviously to beef it up. Which
Great to document.
Tremendous. Why did T Bone want to get rid of it at that point in 2020?
Largely, I believe he was getting ready to move to Nashville.
Okay.
And I think the time where the last couple of years we weren't working there so much all the time, and it just sort of the things he was doing and the way he had sort of developed at that time, I think he didn't really feel like he needed a full-time studio, like a full-blown studio in his house anymore, And he was getting ready to move. It just seemed like it had run its course, and it was time for him to.
Well, that trailer made quite the impact because it sold about 20 times what it's probably worth.
Yeah,
I sold in 15 minutes too, right?
About
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think the man's name's Singh.
Yeah,
he has a huge complex. He's building upstate New York, and money's no object.
So you got it out of town again.
I got it out. It is out of town.
Yeah.
That's
amazing.
true.
I think everyone was shocked how much that board went for. I mean, that was
that trailer. That's
T-Bone did well.
Hyped it up.
Yeah, he certainly did. What's the appreciation from 60-some thousand?
Yeah.
Like
I got
1,000%.
I'm from Indiana. I went to Indiana University, Chicago area mostly,
Great.
but I'm really close with the Mellencamp family.
Oh yeah.
And I know you've done a ton of records with John.
Yeah.
Do you go to Bloomington to work at his house?
Yeah, mostly.
And him and T Bone are pretty close, right?
Yeah,
Obviously?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, they always got along great, and they were like two school kids who would get each other into trouble, because they're both sort of mischievous, I guess, in a way. But when I was saying about the many albums we'd done with, major artists and things with our band, when we came around to Mellencamp, that was off the table. So all of a sudden, we're going there into his lair with his guys, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, it was a little, it wasn't home, with your guys and all that. So it was interesting. I'd heard a lot of stories about John, maybe being a little prickly or difficult or whatever. I mean, it's no secret. He has that reputation. He's probably he'll laugh at me about saying it. So, I went in and, I'm usually can be a pretty likable guy. So I went in without too much concern or whatever. And he was, friendly. We'd set up, we cut some tracks. Everything was actually going great. And so the first song I think we had cut, we did a few takes, and the band went to take a break, and because I got asked to do an edit. T-Bone said, we got these 3 takes, and he goes, we like take 1, but we want to put the bridge from take 3 into take 1, cut the multi-track. So the band knows to scatter, and T-Bone goes for a walk. I go walk over to the tape machine, and and John's sitting on the couch like this, just watching me. And I was like, this is really uncomfortable. So I start finding my place. I make a cut.
This is a razor blade cut.
Cutting the multi-track and not saying a word to me. And it's so funny. So I'm going through. I want to make sure I get the right take. So I listened to the bridge of take 2 to make sure, and I'm going to go to 3. He goes, hey, what take was that bridge from? I said, I was from take 2. He goes, well, that was good, wasn't it? And I said, yeah, it was really good. He goes, well, why don't you put that one in there? I said, okay. You're the only one sitting in the room. He's the one paying me. I said, okay, you want me to put take 2? He says, yeah. So I cut it in, and I just taped it together, and I was about to, you run the tape back and forth a few times. I was just about to hit play, and T-Bone comes walking in the room. He goes, did you do it? And I said, yep, I did it.
Yep.
And he goes, well, let me hear it. I said, okay. So I hit play, and it goes through, and it plays, and T-Bone goes over and stops the tape machine. He goes, what bridge was that? I said, that's from take 2, actually. He goes, well, didn't I tell you to put take 3 in there? And I said, And I look over at John. He's like, yeah, Mike, didn't he tell you to put take 3 in?
No, really?
Oh, yeah. Under the bus. And I said, you guys, I'm so sorry. I messed up. Let me fix this. It'll just take me 5 minutes. I'll get this right. And T-Bone goes walking out. And John is laughing his ass off.
Oh, God.
And
Nice.
so I feel like I endeared myself to him that day. Whereas, like, I didn't go, well, John said, I just dummied
You
up.
didn't throw him under the bus.
Yeah. And so I think, like, he sort of trusted me after that. And I felt like we had a pretty good, sort of getting along after that.
That's hilarious.
Oh, man. Phew, that was
Where was that at? His house or Belmont Mall?
Belmont. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
He's so fascinating.
Yeah.
He loves that
Amazing
area.
guy, man. Amazing. Yeah.
Kenny Aronoff came on this show before. and
Yeah.
obviously, he
Yep.
went to Jacob School of Music at Indiana, but met John there, lived there.
Yeah.
And,
He was like from the time that band first went, right? Yeah.
first record, and they were cutting at Cherokee Studios.
Oh, yeah, right. Before
Yeah.
John, obviously.
That's
had
where he did his first American
When
Fool.
he was John Cougar.
Yeah.
Johnny Cougar.
Johnny. Oh, wow. It was Johnny before John, right? Wow.
Was he smoking 20 cigarettes and
Bit.
had 2 lit in the ashtray, one in his mouth, one in his ear?
Yeah.
He doesn't
did.
drink, doesn't do drugs or anything, just loves
Yeah.
cigarettes.
Smoking. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. But man, I get along great with him. It's easy. He's easy to work with. He knows what he wants. He's not one of those people that like, yeah, I'm not sure, or maybe let's try. Like when he knows, like, let's do this and this, and I'm going to be happy. And you give him that, and he's happy and easy to mix with them. And yeah.
What was the first record you did with the Mellencamp crew?
Oh, phew.
Remember?
I remember the record. I don't remember which record.
Sure.
We'll have to look
That's
that
fine.
up.
We can
Yeah.
keep that.
Yeah.
You've done 3 to 4, numerous artists. You've done 3, 4, 5 records even.
Yeah.
What do you attest that to about your own personal skill and personality?
Well, for one,
I know great producers that have only worked with big artists one
Yeah.
time and then they move on to somebody else. And
right,
then
sure. And I
these
think
people keep coming back to you.
I think a lot of people, like are trying to go into different styles or want a different inspiration for what they do. But I was with T-Bone a lot. So if people would want T-Bone, I came with T-Bone.
Yeah.
So that kind of, but I think, in a general sense, what you're asking, I definitely feel like I can make clients feel, I wrote notes on this actually, like making them feel comfortable, that, I'm a trusted person. They know I'll give them what they're asking for. I guess they like my work at the end of the day as well,
Yeah.
So that means maybe the first project went well and
Yeah, it's not just the history of the studio, it's also educational. There's
yeah.
the audio community on YouTube and social media is just tremendous. It's
Yeah.
gigantic, and they want to
Yeah.
learn how to be
Yeah.
great in this field.
Yeah.
And engineering or producing.
Well, work hard. Don't ever give up, and keep learning, and don't ever think you know everything, ever. Like that's, if you want the bottom line of that,
yeah.
that's my credo, I would say,
I work with this girl named Carmen Vandenberg, but she's really good friends with Molly Miller. Did you do
Yeah.
Molly Miller's record?
I did
Solo without
her
T-Bone. right?
first, her first solo record. Yeah, I sure did. Yeah, I did that.
Tremendous guitar player.
Yeah, she's great. In fact, her brother Sammy Miller, he's in a big band. He's the Sammy Miller Big Band. I did his record, and that's when I met Molly actually. And so I've done 2 records with him now that she's on, and he's fantastic. He's the drummer, and he arranges all the parts for all the horns and everything. Yeah, it's amazing. Really talented guy. So yeah, Molly's amazing. I love her a lot.
There is one record. There's so much work that you've done with T-Bone, without T-Bone, starting here, but there's one record we need to investigate a little bit, and that's Raising Sand.
One of my favorite records.
Yes,
Yeah.
mine too.
Yeah.
It was so groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But it's Robert Plant and Allison Krauss,
Crazy,
for those
right?
who don't know. And
We,
Didn't you do that
just
in the
did
house?
Something without him. Yeah, we did a lot of it on the Bushnell at the house.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, between there, we probably did some stuff at the Village.
Did you? Am I dreaming this, or did you tell me that after Raising Sand, you did a record with them that got shelved? and it
Yep.
never came out.
Yeah, we did a lot of
What
tracks.
happened with that?
It largely went into the vault, although a lot of that was explored, making this, second record that just recently came out.
Okay.
So
Because there was a lot of time frame between the
Yeah.
first record and this most recent.
Yeah.
And I heard
Yeah.
at one point that the new album was stuff that they went through from the old. There was enough material left from the first album.
There certainly
that,
was,
that they could have
but we
released a
cut a
second
lot of
album.
new tracks as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a mix.
So that's what I thought was actually going to come out.
Yeah.
So,
And there may be stuff that may, turn into a third record.
So there's other material that's not out there yet.
right.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, we definitely wanted to cut new tracks, in this new era and everything. So a lot of new stuff was cut as well.
yeah.
Yeah. If you wait too long in between, then some
we
of
didn't
the
want to
stuff
just
doesn't,
grab the other
Yeah,
stuff and
exactly, yeah.
But if something stood out, it was potentially worked on and reworked and remixed and all that.
Who put them together, though? First off, how does Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin worked on 2 records in this room we're sitting in, actually
I know.
mixed when the levees breaks on the Sound Technique
Boy,
board.
I'm like Paul. When I was a kid, Zeppelin was just
I know.
like,
The rock gods.
yeah, it was crazy.
Do you remember how Robert Plant even?
I want to say there was some sort of I wish I could remember who it was, and you could look this up if you want to interject some text above this.
Sure.
There was some benefit or some kind of event where it came to pass that Allison sang with Robert on something.
Oh, wow.
And it had sort of, sparked their interest in a way, but nothing ever happened until T Bone had the idea that, well, let's make a record together.
Oh, he put them together?
I believe that he largely was the one who, made it happen,
Wow.
But they had met and sang before, so I think they sort of had an idea that it was maybe interesting or something, but I don't think they ever considered doing it without T-Bone's, thoughts on the idea.
Yeah. Well, it was a very acclaimed record, Raising
Yeah,
Sand.
yeah. And it was one of those ones where you talk about T-Bone being such a musicologist, and I mean the breadth of stuff he'll present someone, like your Greg Allman or anybody or them, hundreds of songs, for months going back and forth. What about this? Hey, I found this. This might be interesting if we do it in this fashion, or and lots of stuff
The
goes
choice
by.
of musicians for the first
T-Bone.
album, too.
Always
Buddy
T-Bone.
Miller,
Yeah.
Jay Bellerose, Jay's.
Mark Rebo.
Yeah, and Rebo.
Amazing. This has always been T-Bone's strong point, he knows how to pair
Putting
the right
bands
people
together to back certain
right,
artists,
on
yeah.
certain, what kind of music's going to get played, or hey, we need this guy to do a overdub, or whatever. We need this style, but he's like, I don't know how he does it, but he was responsible for that. And then I think on the second record there was a bit of just sort of the artist chiming in too, like, well, hey, what about this or what about that? And so some of those choices might have been made too, doing the second record. But it is, from a fidelity standpoint and a music standpoint, performance standpoint, it was every bit as amazing as that first record. But it will never be the first record because it just came out of nowhere. And but T-Bone and I, when we set out to go mix that record, we said, we know everything we know now. We're our best us. We're gonna make the best sounding record. We're gonna just do whatever we want, take as long as we want, and we both feel like we did our best work on this new record.
What was Robert like? Yeah, I'm assuming you got to talk to him a little bit.
Oh, I mean, a lot.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, no, we're chums. I guess.
mean, he's a legend.
I don't know if I learned it or I was just that way, but even here when I would meet people, I was never particularly starstruck because we're in a work environment, and I never got like that way with anybody. But he was like charming and funny and likable, and yeah, I mean, he was just a great guy. But yeah, I remember like there was a time where we were doing one of those songs from the first record that wasn't maybe sort of in a, you know, folk music genre, but was a little more like sort of bluesy or something. Mm-hmm. And he went out to do an overdub and started singing this sort of wailing part over the top, and I got hit by it. This was a couple weeks in. I'm like, that's the dude. Like, oh my God. Like, but yeah, now because we've gone back many times to do videos and other little things, so I feel like I've worked with him a ton. And now, like, the first time he ended up moving me from my hotel to his hotel so that he had someone to hang out with at the bar after work and stuff. And, yeah, so
that's pretty cool.
And I'll get a call like, "Hey, I'm downstairs in the car." He goes, I just got back from breakfast. He goes, "We're going to the record store." He goes, "Be down here in 10 minutes." You know, I'm like, okay, like run downstairs,
cool.
driving around Nashville, looking through record bins with Robert
playing.
And people are gawking at him. I mean, like he can't go anywhere without being noticed. You know, and he's so charming with everyone. He's lovely. He loves to talk to people and you know, just answer questions and things. And yeah, lovely guy. You know.
Did he ever reminisce about Zeppelin days?
I tried to make him, and so did the band. I mean, we would ask him all kinds of stuff, you know, or someone would just like start picking a little black dog or something to see if they'll go for it, you know. And you know, one thing I kind of knew, but it was never in the forefront. But in this last record, we were working up this song, and you know, you get an energy going in the studio, and the band starts locking in, and we were literally waiting for someone to run down and get a harmonica for him in the right key. And I had an amp set up and 2 mics and everything, and he was just out there sort of like humming along, and I'm recording, of course, and they finally come running in, and I run out in the booth real quiet, and I hand him this thing, and man, he just picked that up and just started blowing like I couldn't believe. Like,
oh, so he plays harmonica.
Super talented harmonica player. Yeah, I mean, he's great. Yeah, wow. It blew me away.
Didn't know that.
Yeah,
on Zeppelin,
that song's a bonus track on the new record, so you can hear it. Yeah.
Oh, I'll check it out.
Yeah,
I have that CD.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go to record stores in Nashville with Robert Plant.
Yeah, and they knew him there too. They're like, "Hey, Robert, how's it going?" And you know, and people are coming up to him like buying a Zeppelin record, like, "Hey, can you sign my record?" And I remember the sweetest thing he did at the end of the first record. I guess I'd done a great job, and he wanted to thank me. And he had been going through, I guess with the other Zeppelin guys, a lot of old photos that never were published, and I don't know if they were doing stuff with them. But he blew up and gave me a framed picture. It's sort of that like 70s faded color looking kind of vibe. It's about yay big. And it's the 4 Zeppelin guys coming off their plane on the runway in Hawaii with lays on, and they've got all their multi-tracks under their arms.
Really?
And they're walking
and that's the Zozo plane with the logo.
And it's just like, wow. It's like one of my prized possessions.
That's so
There's
cool.
another goosebump moment for me. Like, just like to have something like that.
You know what I've always been searching for is pictures of them here in the studio.
Yeah.
Never been able to find one.
And you know, the opportunities I've had to, you know, when I think of Eddie Kramer or somebody who's like some legitimate photographer and stuff that's taken, like the chances I've had to take pictures of people in the studio, but I'd never dared. Like, you know, I don't want to be that guy, or maybe it would be, you know, they would be grateful, but I never.
I mean, that's what we didn't do here either.
Yeah, because they're working, and that's maybe intrusive, and I never
did it
tough
without
line.
Asking.
Yeah,
and
even then, it's not, you know,
the picture walls at the Sound Factory, and that was always with permission. Would you like to be on the wall?
Yeah.
Can we take a picture of you?
And it's
with
usually
some of the
them
staff,
standing
or
around
with you, or or a couple of the guys from your band, and be on our picture wall.
Yeah.
90% of the time, they go, "I would be honored."
Yeah.
You know, and that was really special to have that there. So.
Yeah. really special. Yeah, I never did that, but yeah, I would love to see pictures of them.
We're
here.
gonna find it. We've kind of got it cornered at one point.
You think there are pictures that are?
Well, they were here. They were working on Zeppelin 4.
Right.
And it was
right.
fairly well completed, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
They did several mixes here, which they released it several years ago.
They mixed the whole album, right?
Yeah, the Sunset Sound mix.
Yep.
And before they went back with, I think, Eddie Kramer in New York and remixed it.
Right.
Or at Olympic or wherever it was. But they were calling all these musicians in town to come down here and listen to this, Stairway to Heaven and
like a listen back,
a little listen party. Getting their feedback and people. The stories I heard where people were just blown away.
I'm sure.
When the levee breaks, which did make the original record.
Yeah, that is the mix. That
was in Studio 2.
Yeah.
But
that was in here. So that was Spectrasonics?
That was the Sound Techniques.
Sound Techniques.
Yeah. The English, one of the first English consoles in America.
I watched that whole nerdy episode with my mouth open. I've loved hearing about all that stuff. About that.
That's with Danny White.
Danny White, yeah.
Amazing.
But so with all these people coming down, I heard Jimi Hendrix came down for that.
Wow.
And so that they took some pictures. Hey, let's get a picture.
Right.
So somewhere out there, there's some pictures.
Call Eddie, maybe.
Of.
Yeah.
That was Andy Johns.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Who was mixing that at the time. So, Andy's not with us anymore. But, So I don't know. Somewhere there out there.
Yeah.
If you're listening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I, can ask, really, the people I know from his camp, Nicola, his manager.
Because they were here for a couple of weeks, I think.
Goes through a lot of all the old stuff. I'll see if they possibly have any
photos of Sunset
that'd be
Sound.
Great. Yeah.
That would be incredible for us.
Yeah.
It's like that missing link we don't have.
Yeah. And that's a biggie. That's a biggie.
That was Brian Kehoe.
Who
was on that?
Right.
Us and Danny White.
That's right.
Yeah.
Brian.
I forgot his name.
Right.
He's so instrumental in everything Van Halen, but everything musically.
Knowledgeable guy.
Fascinating episode.
Yeah.
I loved hearing about that board because even working here all the time, I never knew about that board.
Yeah, it was kind of a lost piece of our history.
Yeah.
Until Danny White came around and resurrected the company. I was pretty young back then, and I always knew we had this English board that my dad had brought in from England, first one in America.
And your first board that wasn't built
First board
by
that
you
wasn't
guys.
built by us.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And some pretty iconic records were done on that board while it was
I
here.
bet.
And it wasn't here that long, like 6 years, I think, something like that.
From what everyone said on that episode, like that was a board to drive if you ever have a chance. you know? Sounds like a good one.
Yeah.
So the Bushnell came after that.
After that, yeah.
Okay.
The clone to the Studio One board came after that.
Right.
And I think the only reason we got rid of it is there were some parts issues. Just getting, it was an English board.
Yeah.
You couldn't get the parts.
Right.
So it was a maintenance thing. But it's never, it was always a good sounding board from what everybody said.
Plus, there had to be a lot of flexibility to have a board that was similar to one, where if you had to jump rooms, you kind of just
sounded
plug
the
it
same.
in and you could kind of keep going.
Yeah, that time when we had 3 boards that were all the same, you could kind of move around, and especially if you were overdubbing or mixing.
No learning curve moving from room to room.
Now, we had this Domidio by the time I got here, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't remember a board.
The Domidio was in 3. That went in there in like 76, 77. So that was there when you were.
And then I remember the AMEC board that came
you did?
in. I do. I was here during that time. Which, I mean, from just what I read and hear, like, people love the sound of that console.
It didn't sound bad. We just had some, again, some technical issues.
Yeah.
I think the board got a little rushed when it was built, and it wasn't checked out thoroughly.
Yeah, right.
Funny how everybody cringes kind of here at Sunset when you say AMEC board.
We can edit that out. We don't have to mention that.
It's
One
Well, one of the first sessions we had was this huge like string session with Al Schmidt.
Oh.
And he was raring to get in there. He's like, oh, yeah, I want to use this new board. It's got to be great if Sunset put it in.
Yeah.
The thing goes down.
Oh.
With all these, like, 30 musicians out here.
Literally goes down.
Goes down. Whoa. And it took hours to get back up. I remember we had to pay for the musicians because, I felt so bad. And he was.
Wow.
And then, what did that do to him? That kind of soured him.
Yeah.
On the whole deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they make a AMEC 9099. Ours was the 98, right?
It's the AMEC APC 1000. It's actually up for sale again. Someone came to me and said,
"Is that what we had? It was an APC.
APC 1000. They only built a few of them.
Yeah,
and it had the Massenburg automation.
Green
That's kind of
Street,
why I
New
got
York had one.
Green Street had one, but that's sort of what got me motivated on it. I got a call from we had Massenburg automation back then.
I love the
Remember that?
GML.
The GML,
so
and that
easy.
was before flying faders. There was NECAM, which we originally had.
I remember NECAM.
Remember that?
I used to have to format the
floppy
disks and
things like a platter.
And I remember engineers picking up that little wood box with the 1950s keyboard and throwing it across the room and stuff. NECAM was this horrible. And GML was so easy to use. It worked. If you knew the commands, it was just like zing, zing, zing.
So we get we get GML, and then we're kind of looking for a board because we're outgrowing the Studio 2 board. We need more channels.
Right.
They're locking dual machines.
Yeah.
And so somehow George Massenburg hears I'm looking for a board. He calls me up, and he goes, Paul, you love my automation system, right? I'm like, oh, God, George, yeah, of course. We love it. We love your products.
Yep.
He goes, well, I just signed this deal with this company to put my automation system in their boards. And I'm like, really? Who's that? And he goes, AMIC. And I go, what's AMIC?
So the GML was built into the console?
Yes. It was licensed by GML.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And that's kind of what put us over the edge on buying the board.
Yeah.
We were like, they custom
integrated
that into the board, and then they custom put our mic pre's in the first
See, I didn't know that
48
either.
channels of that board.
Yeah.
We had the Sunset Sound mic pre in that board.
Also, they do the wiring to your specifications instead
and
of
we
using
did,
the wiring.
We used all Mogami
the type
cabling.
Of wire that they
right.
I mean, we spent a fortune on that thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
George
customizing it.
Bender and David Glover flew to England to
that. I remember that part. So I was still the runner. Maybe that's why I didn't know a lot about that board because I was probably not getting time in the room yet.
See, that also took them from 32 channels to 64
which is
channels,
huge.
Which was a big
big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you say, when they're locking two machines together. And
I think it had inline monitoring too, So.
Right, so you could double down at mixing.
Huge
and
console.
then eventually at some point, they... Rupert Neve got involved with the console
because they hired
the input module.
They hired Rupert.
Wow.
And Rupert came here several times to try and help us with the board, even though it wasn't his problem and it really wasn't his design.
Customized.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And so he came in and with the staff from England to try and correct some of the problems, the logic problems and stuff.
So at some point, you got this board working. Sorry, I don't mean taking over the interview.
So,
Paul, so you must have got all the problems worked out.
We did mostly.
And it was obviously, at that point, a custom, great-sounding board of that. So what prompted the move to bail on that at some point and replace it with the vintage?
So, I'd had the board. We'd had our trials and tribulations in the beginning with it, and that was had been smoothed out. So now we're going into the early 90s, and everybody in town is either going to an SSL or a Neve.
Oh.
And Neves are becoming popular, and we're losing business to Neves.
Okay.
Like Neve...
Makes sense.
I guess they were 88Rs. I don't remember.
Yeah, probably.
So I'm like, we never had a vintage Neve. And I said,
yeah,
I feel like we need to have that as part of our arsenal. And that's when I started looking at Neves.
Great move. Wow.
I remember we got the Hoob Entwistle was selling the Neve, and I remember that they shipped over a couple modules so I could look at them, but it wasn't that big a board. It was only like 32 channels, 36. It wasn't. I'm like, that's no good.
Yeah.
So I got wind of this board up in Canada, this 8088, which is a large frame 8068.
Yeah.
Which was a factory built 48 channels, which is unheard of. It's the biggest board they ever built at the factory.
Right.
So I went up there, saw it, made a deal, and brought it back. And I just thought it was a better fit for Sunset because, we were vintage and people
kept us in the discrete world.
The AMIC was a bit of an oddball. Not that it didn't work well, but
but this could actually
people lost interest. Yeah.
But people could actually come in just because that board's in there.
Now,
too,
and now we had the Neve flavor.
Yeah.
For Sunset,
which to
we
me is
never
like
had.
genius move because
So it was a good
that's
change.
This amazing board. But I remember, and tell me if I'm wrong, maybe I remember the AMEC coming or maybe I remember this coming because I was here with both.
Yeah,
I remember
so the
opening
AMEC,
that wall up.
Yeah, we opened the wall.
street.
So the
Both
AMEC
times.
Yeah,
okay, so both times.
Both times,
okay.
yeah, that's how we
I remember that day.
You got to bring it in off of Sunset Boulevard.
It was crazy. I'm like, you're going to do what? Cut the wall?
Yeah, that was like 95.
Yeah.
Right around 95 that came in.
Okay, yep.
And
Must have been
so
right before
also interesting about that board. Is,
Oh, yeah. What's
you know where this board
know-
was originally commissioned for?
No.
It was built in England, and it was commissioned, its first home was Rumbo.
Oh.
in the
Captain
valley, in
and
the San
Tennille's.
Fernando
Really?
Valley. Yeah.
Wait, so before Canada, this was,
So what happened was
God, they had a big board.
Captain and Tennille
Jeez.
custom ordered that board. And it was at
Wow.
Rumbo. And then
Oh, sorry.
they had it for only 3 years, something like that. And then they came out with that Neve. I want to say
VR.
The VR.
Yeah,
the
VR.
V or
Yep,
the V. And
the
so
V and then
Neve
the
got a
VR.
hold of them and said, "Well, you got to get the new Neve," and sold them a bill of goods. So they traded that in for the V, and then they offed it to the Canadian Broadcasting Company and the Canadian
Up in
Broadcasting.
Vancouver.
Yeah, and it sat up there for 10 years or something.
Probably
and then a
didn't do
broker
In a
much.
TV studio.
Yeah,
where they
didn't-
probably
they didn't
used
use
six
it.
faders.
No, they didn't use it much
Yeah,
at all.
yeah.
So it was in good shape.
Good shape.
Wasn't beat up.
No one spilling beer on it. Or,
No.
Yeah.
Nope. No smoking.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
or
so then it-
candles.
Yeah. We don't allow candles.
Yeah, I
anymore.
was here for that episode too.
So so full circle. So it came
Wow,
back
crazy.
literally a few miles from where it was commissioned originally.
That's wild. That's
Yeah.
wild.
Appetite for Destruction was mixed on that board when it
Crazy.
was obviously a Rumbo.
Is that right? Oh, over there.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a heck of a board for an artist to buy for. That was their personal studio at the time, or
Yeah, they made a go of it.
Was Rumbo theirs?
Rumbo was open to the public. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But so why did Captain Tennille own this studio then?
I think for their own work, and then they
Could rent it out.
then they could rent it out too,
Yeah.
so they could.
Right.
Phil gave me the brochure
Oh,
on the christening of that board,
wow.
and for Rumbo, it's pretty cool. I have it upstairs.
Crazy. Yeah.
Then they opened up. They had two additional rooms, a Studio B and a Studio C, and the extra rooms had Tridents,
Okay.
80 series.
A range.
No, 80B.
80B. Yeah. That was a pretty decent
Yeah.
little board.
No.
I always
think
liked
Ross
those EQs
Hogarth
for
worked
some
out
reason.
there
I
a
don't know.
lot in those Trident rooms.
Who did?
Ross, when he was coming up.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hogarth.
Wow. Oh
Ross
yeah,
Hogarth,
Hogarth.
yeah.
Yeah, Hogarth was in here, and he goes, "This board sure looks familiar to me." And then I told him the story, and he goes, "I knew it."
Yeah. I love that guy.
Yeah.
He's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Rumbo.
Let's
Yeah.
each ask Mike one more question, and then we'll let you get on your way. Because
Oh, do I have to?
no, we can stay here all
I'm
day.
having so much fun.
I personally just would love to hear anything that you can mention about Inside Llewyn Davis, which is a film by the Coen brothers
Yeah.
that you and T Bone did. It's tremendous. The cinematography on it is just one of the most
Yeah.
beautiful, groundbreaking things I've ever
Yeah.
seen. But Oscar Isaac is the lead character,
Is he ever?
and
Yeah.
he's a fabulous musician
Yeah.
and vocalist.
Yeah.
just without being
Yep.
on camera.
Yep.
What was the process of
Well, I'll tell you
getting
what.
into that film?
I'll start down one road and then I'll bring you back to reality. But so we pre-recorded all that music for that. And, like we would normally do all the pre-records. And then potentially they'll shoot to those pre-records and lip sync. A lot of times they'll often also do live takes, in case something amazing happens. Peter Kurland, who we'd worked with on many Coen Brothers movies before that, was the location recordist. Really great guy. He and I talked about the possibility of Oscar doing live takes on the set. So with all the pre-records and all the work we did on it, once we figured out like how best to capture him live on the set, which I wasn't there, so often I am, but for that I wasn't. But Oscar went out and threw down and sang and performed all that stuff live on camera.
Wow.
Yeah, recorded by Peter and then mixed by me. And
Wow.
like, what a mofo to be like on camera and to get, here, chill number 3. Boy, the hair on my arm stands up quite a bit.
Wow. That's amazing.
I'm so blessed to be involved with all this. That's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, Oscar, wow, amazing guy. And
Compelling. He's Marcus Mumford was involved in that too, wasn't he? Fare Thee Well. They did.
yeah,
together.
right. That's true. Yeah, Marcus Mumford, who we've worked with on a few different things. The Basement Tapes being one of them. That's true. Yeah.
So you did all the pre-records, and then Oscar Isaac actually just sang it live.
Yeah, and then I mixed it. We might have done a few little embellishments here and there, for the soundtrack, but all the performances, were live. Yeah,
Have you seen that film?
I think I have.
pretty great. Yeah,
I have to
So good.
rewatch
John
that.
Goodman is in
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
It was excellent.
Yeah, great. Anything the Coen Brothers
Yeah.
do is like
No,
crazy good.
we're fans in our household.
Yeah.
Two-part question, and then I'll
Yeah,
be done.
sure.
What
Hey,
do you enjoy doing more, films or
No.
artists or soundtracks? Definitely music, live band, great.
Yep. I could elaborate, but it's just where my heart is.
No,
and
I thought
it's-
that would be there.
Yeah. I love making albums. I really do.
Bill McConnell, one question for Mr. Piersante to
You
close.
can ask as many as you.
Oh,
Where's that $20 you owe me?
Yeah, I didn't really prepare a question.
There's got to be some Sunset Sound fun thing that you could mention.
I can't think of anything offhand.
Yeah.
Mr.
You should
Camarata.
have hit me up earlier.
I've got a question.
No.
Yeah.
So tell us what you're doing now, if you can. What have you been working on?
Project wise,
Yeah.
wow. Well, I've been doing a lot of mixing. I worked on Sammy Miller big band record, which was really fun to just like go off on my own on the new Neve board in our Studio Z room. Some mixing in there. Just did a Paula Cole record. Just did a record with this really talented Latin girl named Gabby Moreno.
I know her very well. She was just
Oh.
in here singing on Joe Bonamassa's
Yeah,
background.
I just
thing.
saw her the other day, and she told me that. Yeah.
She opened up for David Gray one time.
Oh,
I met her.
yeah.
Downtown. at a
She's
theater.
awesome, right?
Yeah, so cool.
My
And
God.
singer, acoustic guitarist.
Yeah, everything else. Just did a David Poe record. So these are all things that I've been just kind of doing on my own. A lot of mixing stuff, and I did both of those records top to bottom, the Gabby and the Paula Cole. So we got that working. I do have one big thing when you ask me what I've been up to lately.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're hinting at this or not, but last March, well, I'll start with T Bone and I have been working on this technology for about 10 years. 'Cause
Oh, yeah.
We're scientists.
Is this
And,
about the acetate?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I saw some press
So
on that.
this is an idea T Bone had a long time ago, and so we basically realized that there is the technology out there to coat an acetate disc with something similar to what would be on your iPhone glass to keep it from shattering, make it tough and scratch resistant. Similar technology used on the space station to protect some of the sensitive parts from the sun.
Wow.
It's called a deposition. It's a spray coating that's like, atoms thick, basically.
Okay.
And so he got interested in this idea for like sort of like, what could we do with the best sounding analog format there is? And everyone we ever talked to agreed an acetate is it.
But that, just to interject, acetate degradates.
It does.
As you play it.
It does.
Correct?
Right.
Yes.
So again, I mean, like, we've been doing this a long time, like very primitive stuff, you know, in the beginning to very high tech in the end. So an acetate is made out of nitrocellulose put on a aluminum platter. It's very, very flat and it's very soft. It's maybe like nail polish or something once it dries.
Yeah.
And that gets etched in from a mastering engineer. And it's what's made to go and make molds to press vinyl records. So, and you can listen to them, but they start degrading quite rapidly, and they will continue to degrade and be horrible sounding in not too many plays. But again, you know, T-Bone said this is the best analog format there is. It's better than tape. It's better than vinyl. It's better than anything. So what can we do? So we started poking around, and years later, we actually developed something that seemed to be working. And I did a lot of the testing on these things after we get them coated, listening for sonic quality, sort of, you know, where we wanted it to be invisible. And then there was like, you know, crackle factor, surface noise to deal with. And we started getting this thing really, really dialed in and decided like we should like make a record, you know, let's do something like this. So last March, I was called by T-Bone to go record Bob Dylan. And I said, cool. And so it's a 3-day session. And we did it like in a little small area of a big giant warehouse in an undisclosed location. And I did it like largely on 2 or 3 microphones, the whole band.
Oh, wow. Like old school.
I literally mixed the musicians around the microphone. I was in another little side office room with a pair of headphones and a BCM-10, and like the acoustic guitar's not loud enough, I go and shove his chair in, or the electric's too loud, I go and turn the guy's amp down, and so I did it that way. So needless to say, we recorded 5 songs with Bob, and but then I ended up, this 3-day session, I ended up being there for 3 months.
Wow.
Because Bob got this idea to do a video. And so he did a video that took us 3 months to record all the music and shoot it. And so I was there a very, very long time. Is
this an entire record?
It's a whole film. Yeah.
Multiple
Shadow
songs?
Kingdom. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it ends up being a nightclub performance, basically, in sort of a surreal film noir format, I would say. You can look it up and find it.
Is it coming out? Or
It's out.
It is
It
out.
was initially a pay-per-view. Oh. You could only see it on pay-per-view, but I'm sure someone's leaked it somewhere by now, or maybe you could buy it or something. Okay. But so anyway, the Ionic thing was so important is, you know, we took one song and we started like, you know, doing different formulations of our technology, different thicknesses, different, we're using different kinds of minerals, you know, sapphire, ruby, graphite, trying all these different formulations. Got something really dialed in, then started going for longevity. And I have a test engineer that we hired to work alongside of me under my direction to do stress testing. And so we have acetates that sound amazing. The coding you can't hear, and we've played them up to like 2,000 times.
Wow.
No wear and tear, no additional noise.
So is this something that could be mass marketed for a reasonable amount of money?
I wouldn't say mass because they are made one at a time by hand, by, you know, carving that acetate, and then they all go out to be coated. But it's certainly something that limited release things could be done on. You know, so that's maybe part of the
with incredible fidelity.
Incredible fidelity, like you can't believe, yeah, like as good as
and
acetate.
You play it on a phonograph.
Yeah, any record player.
But they have to be cut on a lathe.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's why you can't really
mass
can't
produce it.
Produced.
Yeah, so everyone has to be cut individually,
like almost like a direct-to-disc type situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you could put anything on an acetate, and you could certainly hire mastering guy or a team of mastering guys. They say, hey, cut 100 of these and we'll code them and sell them or whatever. I don't know where it's going to go, but we have a company now formed around this that's technology. So the thing we made one of the songs from Bob, and we decided to make a presentation to the public, which we did in L.A. and then in New York. And then I just recently got back from London. I got sent there sort of on my own with my test engineer. T Bone couldn't go and do the London trip. So, and that required me being at, because we were going to auction this disc off, I was literally set up with my own exhibit in Christie's auction house in the middle of London, and I was a DJ for like 10 days.
And you were playing that?
For like hoity-toity high-end client. Thing is, T-Bone is very art conscious, very benevolent to the music society, and like a lot of the reason behind this is to achieve the ultimate best sound you can out of something, and B to sort of be able to have artists explore this format to revalue their own music, where they've been, predicated through the vendors and the streaming services and the public what they can charge for their music. They can now take something, maybe they want to come to us and make some of these discs or whatever, and they can sort of set their own value on what it's worth and do what they want.
It also sounds like,
and it's a new format.
This is something that could endure time. In a preservation situation. Exactly. Where in 1,000 years from now, it's not going to be like a hard drive or something which is tape. It's not
Pro Tools session. We'll open one of those up in 20 years.
This coating, can it still be used as the mold? Or does that keep it from being usable in that?
It's applied after the acetate's cut.
Yeah.
So after the acetate's cut and degassed, we take it to a barometric chamber. It's sort of like a clean room situation with a pressured chamber.
Yeah.
And the discs get mounted in there in a certain way, and then all the formulas plugged into the computer, like what the deposition's made of, how long it goes in there, what the thickness is, and they basically aerosol the thing. And then it dries for a period of time and comes out. And then it's like, we have a lot of testing to do. What happens when I drop my car keys on it or, set it in the sun for 3 hours. But as far as play testing, we've done, like I said, like 2,000 plays. It's pretty tough stuff.
How much did that go for? How much did that go for at Christie's?
Well, after my 10-day DJ stint, which was just so surreal. I mean, you can imagine.
Is it Christie's?
Yeah, I'm at Christie's, like in my little coat with my white gloves, and I got these like art people coming. And about midway through, our Christie's rep, who was handling all the media that was coming through to shoot film and do interviews, the poor guy went down with COVID. I found out one morning, and I said, and so then it was just me in there, like trying to talk to the public and getting interviewed, which you see I'm not necessarily that comfortable with, but
you're doing it fine.
Anyway, after 10 days of that, we this thing was protected in ways you can't believe. 2 armed security guards in a lock case, and whenever we transported, I had to travel with these guys in the black cab. We went to a hi-fi shop one night, and my guy got out, and I handed him the disc, and I stepped out, and we were walking in. We got pictures of us walking into this hi-fi shop, and so anyway, at the end of the 10 days of presentations, which got really busy because the BBC broke a story about day 3 or 4, and just hordes of Dylan fans and music fans, and people were lined up in the hallway waiting to come and talk to me and listen to them, because I had a whole couple $100,000 Macintosh setup with some really amazing headphones, and so I had to play it for people over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so at the end of this, I handed it off to the security guys. They took it upstairs to the auction room, and I went and sat in the auction. I was like, what am I doing here? And 1.8 million American dollars it sold for.
Incredible.
Yeah. I mean, T-Bone's got a magic touch.
Paul
That's
just
all
said
I
that
can-
the other day. Everything he touches just
I know.
works.
Yeah.
He's brilliant.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Does he attest that to the marijuana that he likes to smoke?
I can't comment on that one way or the other. I have no knowledge of that situation. But if anyone knew him as I do, which a lot of people do, he has such a pure heart about what he's doing. It's always there's never his ego's not involved. It's not ever just about money or anything. He just like wants to make the best art he can make. That's really what drives him.
That's amazing.
100%. Yeah. So maybe that has something to do with why he's blessed so well.
There was a tremendous series that came out, I believe it was on HBO, called True Detective with
Yep.
Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson.
We did that. Yeah.
You did that as well.
Yeah.
Now there was a club I still go to. It's called Hotel Vegas in Austin.
I'll
Texas.
just say, in case he watches this, Jason Wormer was actually the main engineer. I was a little on the sideline on that, doing other things. But
Okay, great.
But he was an engineer we brought on.
And Sam was involved with that, wasn't she?
She might have had a song or something.
Because we did
season
something
one.
in here for that.
Yeah, it's possible.
Really?
She
I
came
didn't
in.
know that.
Yeah.
She came in to work
So
on
I
that.
again was on the periphery of that show.
Yeah.
But done in our camp.
Oh, okay.
But there is a band from Austin, Texas called the Black Angels, and they would play in this club called Hotel Vegas. They still do.
Huh.
In South Austin. Well, T Bone or whoever was the musical director on that, I mean, I would imagine it was him, put that band as the opening song
Yeah.
in season 1.
Yeah.
And then they played it in episode 4 too, in
Yeah.
the most pivotal part. The band blows up.
He does that.
And I mean, it was so authentic to Austin 1. And I mean, everybody that had been to Austin knows this band. It was kind of like a Gary Clark Jr. type thing. But do you have any remembrance of why he, or how he even came across them?
He does that. He knows so many people, and sometimes something will get sent to him, or he just goes out and scours, and he listens to all kinds of things all the time.
Wow.
And he'll find something he locks onto. And he especially loves working with a young unknown band if he thinks they're great.
Yep.
And he's done that many times in films and TV shows and things.
Yeah, he's so authentic to
And,
wherever
yeah.
he is also.
He finds something he knows is right, and he'll just go after it. Yeah.
Amazing.
I'm happy for the band. Yeah, it's a great break.
Yeah, I mean, they were
Really
just playing in a
fantastic.
little 50-person club, and now
Yeah.
it's like you're on this major television show. The whole thing about that series was tremendous. And then
Yeah.
the two guys, being from Texas, Matthew and Woody.
Yeah.
Have you seen that, Phil or Paul?
Yeah.
I've seen an episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
Second season.
It's pretty dark. Yeah.
That first one was killer.
The first season was the best, but they
Yeah.
were all good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And watching the third season, I was watching after the first episode, watching the credits, and look, Zach does,
Yeah.
Biff does,
Yeah.
wow.
Right.
So people that I
Yeah.
grew up with and or
Yeah.
watched grow up for
Yeah.
Zach, and grew up, in a junior high
Love
school.
Zach
with-
and love
with
Biff.
Yeah. So I was really surprised. I didn't know they were involved in that.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Zach's been around in T-Bone world for a while.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
interning for us one summer, and he left early because T-Bone offered him a position to come over and be kind of like the intern at the house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he goes, look, T-Bone called me, said offering me this,
Yeah.
something that Carla from,
had
set up, you know, and
Carla Azar.
Is it okay if I leave early and
He's
not
such a
finish
sweet
this?
guy.
And I go, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great opportunity
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah.
So
And he's done well being around the camp,
yeah.
I think. Yeah, he's done really well for himself. Yeah.
what was that my question?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, and you filled in. Look at how that works.
Full circle.
See, and I ended up
Comes around.
finishing it off.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very
there we
good.
go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, I forgot Zach was over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
No, I think what I was going to ask you about was I remember talking to you a long time ago, and this was one of your first trips to Nashville, and you were telling me you learned so much going and recording there and learning all these techniques, not just from engineers, but from the musicians who have been doing it for so long that they can give you tips on engineering.
Oh,
and
man.
mic placement, and this is the best mic for this amp or this guitar and things like that. And then going and doing Raising Sand there and with with that cast of
It's
people that
another-
must have been really special. So
Nashville's another world where like there's so many serious cats there in all aspects of things, and you know I could tell stories. I don't want to drag the interview out if we're wrapping up, but
maybe volume 2.
yeah, volume 2. But
Tomorrow.
I have some amazing stories about doing Oh Brother, because not only had I never worked on a film before doing that, I'd never recorded a bluegrass band in my life, you know, which goes into what you were saying about just learning stuff by going
So
down
you get
there.
a whole new education on recording acoustic instruments.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And a huge appreciation of ribbon mics and things like that. Yeah. Met a lot of good people down there, and really great.
All right.
Yep.
Well, this is tremendous. This is the 60-year anniversary of the studio.
I know,
For being a public studio, and
Amazing.
the engineers, the producers, the runners, staff that worked over those 6 decades, you know,
Yeah.
coming back in here to share stories, so it's documented forever. It's better than
Yeah.
writing a book. It's better than doing a series. I mean, we can go on forever and ever
Yeah.
because there's just endless stories.
When I saw the first thing I think I noticed was you were saying with the console thing, and I was like, oh my God, this is great, and there's all this amazing information about the studio, and then there was the one where you did an interview just about the studio itself, and I was just hooked from there. I was like, this is great.
Thank you.
So glad you guys are doing this. It's important.
It is
It's
to
very
document.
important,
'Cause
yeah.
it's
really
it's knowledge
is.
that's evaporating.
And you must have just
Yeah.
gone back and done such digging since you started the series, right? To figure out facts
You
and
know, it
things
kind
and-
of it kind of has a life of its own. You know, we start to find things out that we'd forgotten. And
Yeah.
then we kind of dig into it. And
well, it was just
Right.
about Van Halen originally because
Yeah.
Eddie passed away.
Yeah,
That's kind of what
right.
sparked it.
So is that really what the impetus
Yeah.
of what? Yeah, wow, amazing.
And Dweezil Zappa was kind of helping out for
Yeah,
a minute too. But
he's like
it was,
on it, man. My God, I was listening to him. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, he's crazy.
He's a great guy too.
But the Van Halen stuff, and then I was like, why don't we
Yeah.
just do this on every
It's
room?
legendary. Yeah.
And we were up in the tape vault looking at things, and there's just so many. Every inch
God.
of this place has history on it. And it's so original and
If
authentic.
you could go there, like some of the Disney stuff.
oh yeah,
Tutti's trumpets, Tutti's trombones. Come on.
yeah, I know.
Well, I was so glad to get those albums when I worked here. It was like presented to me, and I played the crap out of those. I love horn music, and something served me well that whoever knew, you know, just knowing how to record horns. You didn't work here in Meyer anyway, and not know how to record a horn section. Like that was like mandatory.
That's cool. That's
So-
what Josh said.
And that's Bruce Botnick.
Yeah.
on the trombone record.
Yeah,
he
wow.
engineered those?
Yeah, he engineered.
Yeah.
He engineered the trombone record. I don't think he engineered the
trumpets.
the trumpet record.
Yeah.
And also finding the pictures, you know,
Yeah,
I'm just
amazing.
like a hawk looking for these pictures
Yeah.
online, but also from people and like the stuff
Yeah.
Paul has in storage, where, you know, Tutti's in Studio One conducting an orchestra in 1961.
Oh wow.
And sharing
Is
that
that
with everybody.
online? Have
I put a
Some of it is.
few of
Yeah.
them on our Instagram if you
Yeah.
follow Instagram.
We're doing a Louis Armstrong record
You can-
in here with him, you know,
Amazing.
for Disney.
Wow.
One
that's
of those
cool.
pictures is actually, they made a copy and it's hanging in the traffic office.
Oh,
if you want to take a look
I do.
on the way out.
I do. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Tutti, man.
Well,
Yeah,
you're
if it
the-
wasn't for him,
Yeah.
there wouldn't be this.
And
and
was
you've kept it
great,
going,
great.
though. You don't give yourself enough credit.
Yeah,
it's
that's
2022.
that's for darn sure.
You could have sold this place or done something else with it in 1993 when Mike was here, and it's
Yeah.
still 2022. And
That is amazing, Paul. That you just
It's
like,
still going.
That's your passion, you know.
Yeah.
That's why this place is so good. You can't just run a studio like a business and have it have soul and meaning and, you know, do all this great art, you know, without that passion behind
Well,
that.
thank you.
Yeah, it's
And thank you for coming down and being a part of Sunset Sound.
man, are you kidding?
Yeah.
I've been like afraid to do this for so long because I don't know, I'm seeing all this stuff and it's like, well, I didn't work with Prince or Van Halen or like, what am I going to talk about?
Yeah, you only work with
perfect
Robert
priming.
Plant.
Yeah, but not here, unfortunately.
Bob Dylan.
It's
I wish I
okay.
did.
We
I'd
got
have to have been a lot older. if I-
we hope we helped a little
Yeah.
to get you there.
I'll try to bring him here. I'll coax him over.
that
Wouldn't
works.
that be amazing?
Yeah, yeah.
Tremendous.
He might want to visit. He's going to be here in town next week.
Is he?
They're doing some shows. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. He's playing
They're
the
on
Greek.
tour.
He's
Yeah.
playing the Greek.
On the
He
18th.
is. Yeah. And I
Very
think
cool.
Santa Barbara maybe before that. Yeah.
Love that
Wow.
venue.
And then I think I'm going to mix some shows that they're recording, they're filming.
Oh, they are.
Yeah,
They're
they're gonna
documenting the show.
They're definitely going to do something. Yeah. So, because I've been asked to put some time aside. So,
Nice.
but I'll say, hey, while you're in town, let's pop over and see Paul and Phil and.
And tell me if you remember this room.
I'm coming
Yeah,
to work.
he
every
might
day
gas
next week
on it.
now.
Honestly, coming. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I can't
Yeah, boy, you know how I always feel walking through here with Robert. Like, hey, check out my buddy Robert, man. Let's go. I feel like
60-year
king of the world.
King
the
of the
longest
world.
running independent studio too. You gotta
Is
beef it
that
up
a
for 'em.
fact?
From afar.
We'll
we
talk
know.
about that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There's a little controversy.
Well, okay,
Fame,
okay.
Muscle Shoals.
Oh, wow, wow. Okay,
I don't buy that.
Well,
So
but
there's-
same, still in the same family.
is it?
Yeah. And evidently they went, Tutti started this before they did, but this was a private, this is the technicality.
Commercials.
Is
right.
58.
that's the longest owned by the same family commercial
Commercially
studio.
run studio.
But Tutti incorporated and opened to the public a year after they started. But Tutti started this first, but
Right.
it wasn't a commercial open to the public.
But the longest
studio.
privately held
yes,
recording studio,
as far as
Yeah.
we know. Yeah.
Right. So I have
there's
to say, oh, go ahead.
Valentine too. There's competition in that. If you read their history, so yeah, we need to a little investigation. But
I'm sticking with Cincinnati.
in this town,
Yeah.
we're king.
on this
We're
block.
king.
So now I have a question for you,
Yes, sir.
because I know a person who knows a lot of the history and has seen a lot of the things that have happened in this place, and that's this man right here.
Ah.
So when is the Phil McConnell episode?
He's a co-captain for on 2 episodes now with
Okay,
John Randy of the
so
Wrecking Crew.
I've missed this, but are you going to have just a Phil and Paul interview, or have I missed that too? Do I need to study up on my library?
Just told Paul we should do another because the first thing we ever recorded was the
history
history
of the studio.
Yeah, and
That
I had
did
been
see.
here 1 week. I didn't even know what
Wow.
anything was, and now it's like,
Yeah.
I don't even want people to see that. Like,
That's
let's
crazy.
Do another one.
Because you're so knowledgeable through all these episodes that
In 2.5 years, I've just been digging through work orders and
Wow.
the internet and learning the stories of all these bands and the
And
engineers
what
who
were
worked
you
with
hired here for to do?
marketing stuff. But
Yeah.
Social media,
Right. Well, all
merchandising.
big important stuff in this era. Yeah, for sure.
But now I'm actually producing a record for Ozzy Osbourne's daughter in this room.
No way.
Yeah.
For real.
I'm
Serious. That's amazing.
not in the level of anything that you would do or something,
Well,
but
I mean, who's to say? I mean, you know.
I have this
Who
girl.
knows where that'll go?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
This girl Carmen that works with me, she was in Jeff Beck's band. She's in another band.
Wow.
She's a tremendous musician
Yeah.
and arranger and
Well,
producer.
that's what's about the musicians and the music, really. What we do is we're a lens, you know. I
we
mean,
team up on things, and it's a good combination.
it's
'cause,
great.
There's
Fantastic.
numerous layers of producing, but we brought a perfect circle in the band.
Yeah.
for that rhythm section.
Yeah.
And Carmen obviously played guitar, and she
Wow.
sings. So we've been finding her demos and writing her songs, and
Very cool.
yeah, it's good. But I worked for free for the first couple months just because I was so infatuated.
I would too.
And the story of
Done
Paul
that.
and his father and the bands and
Yeah.
the diversity too of
Yeah.
Prince to Zeppelin to the Doors to Janis Joplin to
I know. And Disney in the beginning.
Disney
and-
work, yeah.
Yeah. How that parlayed into,
places like this need to be protected,
Yeah.
investigated, documented, and I mean my whole thing still is doing a documentary doc series
Yeah.
to really explore each decade,
yeah.
each label, but
Yeah.
it's so compelling every
There's
day.
so much.
There's not one day when you don't come through that gate, and I talked to Nate, the other engineer here, about this, where you get excited
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's like the Chateau Marmont or the Troubadour or something
Yeah.
like that, where it's just
Yeah. It's a historic place.
the LA sound was done and made in Studio One.
Yeah.
That Laurel Canyon. I mean, here and United and other studios, but
yeah.
I mean, Good Vibrations was cut in Studio One.
Yeah.
Beach Boys.
Well,
That's
yeah, a lot
tremendous.
of the Wrecking Crew stuff. I mean, this was one of their regular stops to do those
Yeah.
records. I mean,
They rotated here.
that
and
was huge stuff.
Gold Star and United
There was
Western.
a documentary. Maybe it was in the Wrecking Crew documentary where they show the guys pulling up in the front,
Pulling the
their
front,
station
loading
wagon,
it,
unloading,
loading it
and-
through the front
yeah,
door.
through the front door.
That's where the console went through.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But I knew, like, again, when I started here, I wasn't that interested in production or, curious about who did what or anything. But my first day on the job, I remember pulling in, first day as a runner, and I get out of my car and I'm walking up to the gate, and sitting up against the wall, just sitting in the sun with her knees up, is Debbie Harry just sitting there.
Really?
And I was like, okay, like, this is pretty cool. This is going to be a neat place to work. And then, like, yep, it sure was. Yeah, she was just sitting out there in the sun, taking a break. And
Yeah.
so they were working on whatever record she
Yeah,
was.
they were in Studio 3.
Mike Chapman, I think.
Chapman,
And-
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's when we
Yeah.
had that tiger come down.
Yeah.
Because we got some pictures of her playing with the tiger. Do you remember that?
Tom Petty too.
Dude,
Yeah.
I remember
Tom Petty
that.
was here too.
I'm pretty sure I got to pet that tiger.
Yeah.
In fact, wasn't it Ricky's relative?
It was
who,
somebody
he was an
we knew.
animal
A handler or
Yeah,
something.
right. I remember the tiger.
was pretty wild.
Remember Craig's potbelly pig?
Oh,
he had
yeah.
back
You
by the
remember
kitchen?
that? For his birthday, we
Yeah.
got that thing. Lisa got that for him.
He was happy as a clam.
And the painting his office pink.
Yeah, interesting.
I have a picture of Craig. Oh, here it is. That's Craig with Tom Petty holding the tiger.
Oh wow! Oh yeah, yeah. I remember this shot. What this might have been on a wall somewhere. Yeah,
I think it was at
yeah.
one time.
I remember that
Traffic
yep.
office.
Yeah, I
It
remember
was
that
under
picture
the
being
glass
Oh,
on the front desk.
man.
Yeah.
We pulled
Yeah.
all those pictures out last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. I'm telling you though, you got to pick Phil's brain before he goes anywhere. 'Cause
Before the dementia sets
he
in.
he just knows more than he's talking about.
I talk with him every day. What are we talking
Yeah.
about the other day?
so much stuff you've seen.
What's the great record that we love the song
See,
on?
we were talking about it, but I can't remember. That's why.
Jackson
Yeah.
Brown.
Yeah.
The
Pretender.
All the Jackson Brown stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretender.
And stuff that he didn't know about who played on what.
Yeah.
And
Right.
The Rockaday Johnny is Elton John
Yeah. Right.
on
Right.
Redneck Friend and
Wow.
a couple other songs.
Yeah, you're tremendous with knowing all that stuff
And
about who's on
everyone
the.
spent time in Phil's office when they were working at the Sound Factory just to get away, and it was just the coolest place to hang out if you got a chance.
Nice.
Yep. That's for sure.
Well, I think I gotta go take a peek.
I've overstayed my welcome. Probably.
Did you get through everything on your
I
list?
did. I took a peek and all the I think everything that I had wanted to talk about came up, and and then some, which was great.
Last question, real quick.
Yeah.
Adele album of the year.
Okay. Yep.
Just how did you guys? Is that T Bone as well?
No. Ryan Tedder.
Oh yeah, One Republic.
Yeah. I met Ryan Zancanella. We had a room at the Village. He was a writer and worked a lot with Ryan, doing stuff. And he wanted my sort of take on the way I would record stuff and do some more acoustic things with their band, including drums. And so I spent a lot of time flying back and forth to Colorado during the last One Republic record, helping them do things and whatever. And after that, some time came by where Ryan wanted some help on an Adele song that he was working on.
Oh, gotcha.
And so he asked me to come in and help him with that.
Okay.
And that turned into a Grammy. Like most of the Grammys, maybe all the ones I have, I'm done those records from the demos, the tracking, the overdubs, the editing, the mixing, like the whole thing top to bottom. That one, just like, it was.
Yeah, they bring Ryan Tedder in all over the place. They brought him in here for Michael Bublé.
Yeah,
him and Greg Wells.
He's a crazy talented guy. It's just like really musical. Great soul, great guy. Took great care of me.
That's great.
Yeah, love Ryan. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. It was
My pleasure.
Fascinating to
Thanks,
speak
you
with
guys.
you. This is the whole dynamic of the show, and
I'm not
obviously
worthy. I'm not
a prime
worthy.
example of
But you are.
Man.
the Sunset Sound runner to engineer story.
Yeah. So all you runners out there, remember, just keep working hard and keep learning. Don't give up. But it's those guys, the the ones that don't give up are the ones that carry on.
Yeah.
You know,
Go the extra mile.
And that's what keeps perpetuating the studio.
and if I have any wisdom, you know, as you're coming online and going to maybe get hired, it's about half of your talent. That's what's important. The rest of it is about your personality, your vibe, how comfortable people are with you. You could be the most talented guy in the world and have a jagged vibe, and you're not going to get the work, you know. So just, you know, always be considerate of that, you know.
Our runner Farouk is actually an assistant engineer.
He looks like he knows a little bit.
Sound on this right now.
Yeah.
The audio better be good.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of young kids coming up. There's so much competition and so few studios now. So yeah.
True.
But what a better place to grow up, learn, meet people, learn from the greats, you know. You could work at the small studio and be a first engineer in a month, or you could come here and make a career, you know. So that would be my final parting thoughts.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.